everybody, welcome back to The Beard and the Bald. I am Paul Shirey the Beard, joined by my compatriot the Bald, Christopher Bumbray.
Hello, everyone.
This week we have a very, very special guest,
Don
a
Johnson.
young man by the name of Alex Maidy. Alex, how are you?
I'm good. You can call me Special Alex for the rest of the show.
Special A, how about that? I like that better.
Nice.
Special A, what you got to say? Oh, shit! See what I did there?
Bad
Nice.
rhymes.
Mad rhymes.
Dad joke rhymes to start the fucking show off. Oh boy. So how's everybody doing this week? We didn't have a chance.
Good.
Normally we catch up. Me and Chris talk for about 15 minutes or so before we start, but we did not do that today. So I don't know how anybody's doing.
I took Alex's recommendation this week and watched Russian Doll.
Okay, everybody's talking about that one.
Yeah, very good. Very good show. You were right, Alex. Very good. It's kind of, it's funny because if you look at the trailers and stuff, it makes it look like kind of a Groundhog Day clone. But it's not really. Like, it has kind of elements of that, I think. And but it kind of jumps off from there and gets a lot, it makes it much different, right? And a different kind of genre. And the less I say about it, the better, because you kind of have to go in blank a little bit. But overall really good. It was it's Natasha Lyonne. She also wrote it with Leslie Headland, who's a pretty interesting director who did Bachelorette and Sleeping with Other People. Didn't care for Sleeping with Other People, but liked Bachelorette quite a bit.
I liked Bachelorette was the first direct to digital movie. I remember that. That was like one of the first, oh shit, it's like instead of going theatrical, it's going directly here. And
first big one, I think.
Yeah, big one. That's what I mean. Yeah,
like,
it was like a big deal for that one.
Yeah,
strangely enough.
And it was the first one to, I think, make money too digitally. But liked it a lot, and I know that you liked it, Alex. And I also watched another really good show, The Terror. Have you guys, either of you, seen that?
Is that the AMC?
Oh yeah.
one?
Yeah,
Yes.
It just hit Amazon Prime in Canada because I missed it when it was on AMC, and that was
How was it?
it was terrific, man. I mean, it's kind of interesting because what happened was it was this ship that disappeared, that vanished into thin air about 100 years ago or so, or 150 years ago, I guess, and they found the wreckage of it just a couple of years ago in Canada in the Northwest Territories. Right.
And there was a black box, and they listened to it. Oh wait.
Well, no, nobody knew what the hell happened to this thing, and no remains or anything were ever found. And what the book that it was based on did was they took that as a jumping off point to see what could have happened to these guys. And it's weird because there's a supernatural presence, right? That's kind of like the thing almost.
Right.
But the thing that's so brilliant about the way they do it is that the monster that's stalking them and killing them is really the least of their worries. Right, it's really it's bad, but the fact that they're starving too, and that they're stranded, and they have no chance of help, and the hopelessness that's sinking in, and just the people, how they start to get on each other, and just and the types of personalities that are with the crew, and the way that it starts to break down the hierarchy and stuff, that ends up being the real danger. And it's very cinematic. It's produced by Ridley Scott, and it really has his fingerprints all over it. But the guy who was the showrunner, I forget his name, but he was also the guy who wrote the Suspiria remake, which I oddly enough hated. And he, I thought he nailed it. I mean, the music is so good too. It's really well scored, and it's beautiful cinematography, amazing acting. It's Jared Harris, and
yeah.
The guy who's amazing, and the guy from Outlander, I forget his name, the Tobias Menzies. He's really good, and it's Kieran Hines, who was a terrific show. Really, really, really good. You watched it, didn't you, Alex?
Yeah, I reviewed it, and from the beginning they were going to make it into an anthology type show.
Well, they're doing a season 2 now, and George Takei is one of the producers, and he's going to start it because it's going to be about the Japanese internment in World War II. Because George Takei grew up that way. He was interned with his family.
Mm.
The guy who wrote The Terror, Dan Simmons, I was introduced to him because he wrote a book called Drood that Guillermo del Toro was one of his millions of projects he was going to make.
Oh,
and he's actually, Dan Simmons wrote a really great series called Seasons of Horror that's very similar to It. So people that are looking for something like It, read the first one's called Summer of Night. It's really, really good.
Does it have a killer clown?
It does not, but it has children in a small New England town that have to deal with a supernatural terror.
Well, that does sound quite a bit like It.
Yes.
Has a lawsuit been filed?
Yeah.
Next question.
I think Stephen King actually gave it a seal of approval because he likes it.
He's
Oh,
like,
good.
fuck it, go ahead.
Yeah, whatever.
I have this idea about these kids that bury their pets
And the
in a
pets come to
cemetery.
life.
But it's called Pet Cemetery, but
Pet
cemetery
graveyard.
is spelled cemetery is spelled properly.
No, pet graveyard. I just got an email for a pet
Graveyard.
graveyard from like one of those mockbuster companies.
Oh,
Pet
really?
graveyard. Yeah, pet graveyard. So lame. It's even got like an evil looking cat on it.
Okay, but I have this idea about these like soldiers that like they die in like a war and then you bring them back. They're like revived as like super soldiers, but they clear their minds. And it's called Universal Warriors.
Universal Warriors.
What do you think?
Yeah. Planetary soldiers, galaxy soldiers.
Yeah, but it's all on Earth. And I want to get Dolph Lundgren in one of the roles. I think he'd be great.
I got one for it's a movie where it's called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
And it's this bus has to speed all around town.
Oh,
and if its speed drops to lower than 50 miles an hour, we call it the bus. Billy and the Clonosaurus. In the news park full of dinosaurs, Billy and the Clonosaurus.
Billy and the Clonosaurus. We could do this all day.
Speaking of interesting movies, though, okay, so I have a sideline, right, that I review movies for CTV, right, the Canadian CNN.
Yes,
I guess.
we know you're a big deal in Canada, Chris.
Not at all. But anyway, I do this thing. I do it from home on like FaceTime. But anyway,
Put his pants off. He does not wear pants.
Well, you never know. You don't see below the chest. But anyway, so I have to go see pretty much everything now that comes out. That's why I take so many shitty movies for you, Paul, because I have to go see everything. That's why I do a lot of those like weekend movies, because I really have to go see everything pretty much that opens. So
one question before you go into that. Do they pay you? Do they pay for the movie or do they get you into screenings or how does that work?
Well, no, I usually would just double down with JoBlo, but then there's a place right by my apartment that does that like a movie theater, like a really discount movie theater. It's $5 to go see a movie. So whatever.
Okay.
I get paid for the hit. So it all ends up paying off. But anyway, I had to go see. Totally didn't want to see it. Happy Death Day to You yesterday, right? I had to.
Oh, everybody's saying that's good.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I never saw the first one, but I had heard about it, and I'm just generally not that interested in those Jason Blum type, or schlock movies. I think I was burned by too many of them, but so I went to see it yesterday, fully intending to just kind of nod off or whatever, watch a bit of it, and because I only have to talk about it for like 60 seconds, pretty much. Was riveted. Absolutely thought it was terrific. It's so fresh what they did with it. So the original, it was, I guess, that she has to wake up every day over and over and over again and is killed by the same mass killer and has to find out who it is. So they take that as the jumping off point, but they explain why she ended up caught in this time loop, right?
Yeah.
And, the killer, it really doesn't matter who the killer is this time. Like it's so creative the way they do it. Like they kind of, I think, intended to make the Back to the Future 2 of those of horror movies, and they name check that a lot, and even the soundtrack sounds a bit like Alan Silvestri, and it's so well done, but it's a spoof pretty much of the first one. Like it's not played seriously at all.
Yeah, that's what Caitlin said in her review. She was like,
I read a review. She was actually, I think her review was pretty accurate actually.
Yeah, she says like way more of a comedy, not really a horror movie at all.
I would have probably given it a score pretty much along the lines of hers. Actually, she gave it an 8 on 10. I was just reading it, and that was I think that was a good one. And I spoke to Jimmy too, and Jimmy really liked it.
Yeah.
But it's also that girl who's the star of it, Jessica Ralph. She was in La La Land, and she's really kind of anchors the movie because she gives kind of a fun, knowing performance, like a wink at the audience type thing, and but really kind of jumps into it, and the movie is just so much fun to watch, and it's too bad because it's really tanking this weekend considering that the first one did so well. But I also think it's the fact that I saw it with a fairly full house, and the audience of teenagers were all like afterwards, what the fuck was that? Because they weren't expecting a comedy, they were expecting a horror movie.
Looking for the kills and stuff.
Because they're kills in it, but they're all for
off screen.
No, they happen on screen. It's gory, but it's all funny though. That's the thing.
Really?
It's all like, it's pretty, like there's a part of the movie. So I don't want to spoil much, but at a certain point she has to kind of relive the day over and over again, and she needs to she needs to kill herself a couple times in order to relive the day. As she starts doing it and kind of she gets bored, so she starts doing it in creative ways. Like she drinks like Purex at one point, but then there's that when she's jogging and she sees a wood chipper, and she's like, okay, and she just jumps headfirst into the wood chipper, and you see like parts of her body, like blowing everywhere and getting stuck in the wood. So it's super gory, but it's funny the way they do it, and it has a real sense of humor. And the director, it's funny enough, I was looking him up, and it's Christopher Landon's son. You remember Michael Landon's son, Christopher. Remember Michael Landon from back in the day, Highway to Heaven?
Yeah.
The great head of hair.
Yeah, he's dead now.
Hair like yours, Paul. It's a helmet of hair.
That's actually very accurate. My dad would be proud of that.
Your dad had great hair. I saw your post on Instagram. He had a
helmet of hair would be accurate for my dad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
had
a mane.
Yeah, but I highly recommend it to anybody though that wants to go see kind of just a fun B movie that's just doesn't take itself too seriously. And those are the kind of movies I think also that Blumhouse should make, as much as they can. Something that really kind of plays with the genre because it's so cheap. They're gonna make money off of it.
Sure. But I think Blumhouse too. I mean, for all the silly ones that they do, he does do some good ones. Like with the Jordan Peele thing, like Halloween, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the Blumhouse stuff has graduated out of the realm of like, one bullshit horror movie to something that's a little more refined. I would say.
I saw a trailer for one yesterday. That's another Blumhouse movie that I think is probably going to make like $100 million. And they're actually opening. So yeah, that's gonna do really well.
Which one?
It's got Luke Evans in it. I can't understand how they got that cast for a story that makes absolutely no sense. It is so insane. But I saw the trailer and I want to really see it now.
Oh, that movie's going to make $100 million. So yeah,
it's the Fatal Attraction model. Anything that has that Fatal Attraction model, people love because they love seeing, a situation where somebody seems like they're a great person, and then it just turns out they're a fucking nightmare. And I think the reason people love those movies so much because everybody has experienced that to some degree in their life.
Well, and also I think the casting is very smart too, because Octavia Spencer is such a likable person. She seems like, she doesn't seem like the kind of person who, she's a fucking psychopath. She seems like
a nice old black lady that's like just trying to like, hey, come on, you guys can just hang out here, and it makes sense. Like you can actually buy the premise,
and you could get why the kids would like think, oh, she's nice.
Yeah, like she's just this really cool lady, like just lets us go to her basement, and you wouldn't think it, she's just like, and she's not old. I guess that's not accurate, but she just looks like, innocent. Unassuming. She looks like harmless. Harmless, unassuming. You're just like, oh, she's just like this black woman that's just like super nice and cool.
Well, she radiates kindness. That's the thing about Spencer. She seems like a kind person, and it's just, but that's, I and the audience though, the way like people were reacting to the trailer, they're like, oh shit, and they were going crazy, and because they saw Octavia Spencer and they all started like giggling, and they thought it was going to be like The Help too, and they're like, oh yeah, her, and they were all kind of like, yeah, and she's with the teens, and they were kind of giggling. And then when she starts going crazy and murdering them, and these like
earrings,
and she starts murdering them in these really grotesque ways and stuff like that, and people are like, oh shit, and going crazy. So I think it'll probably do well. That and
I think so too. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Us is going to be massive.
Us honestly surprised the shit out of me with that trailer because I think it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
Like it really does look. I can't compare it to anything, and that's when I feel like, okay, this is something really cool.
Yeah, he seems like he's the real deal.
I can't sit there and be like, oh yeah, this is just like blah blah blah, but it's not. It's like, shit, I need to see what the fuck this is.
Yeah.
So that's when, I think Jordan Peele's certainly the real deal when it. In terms of horror, he's not a one-off.
No.
And I really liked Get Out. I don't know that I loved it as much as everybody else.
Well, yeah, me too. Because I saw it. I was at the premiere of it at Sundance, and it was just like, I remember when I saw it, I was like, well, this is like a really good horror movie, like just a really well done. Like I gave it an 8 on 10, and I was like, this is a really well constructed horror movie. But then when it got nominated for Best Picture, I was kind of like, well, I mean, it was good, but was it that good? And I think that started a bit of a backlash against it to a degree, but it is a very good movie though.
It's very well made, very entertaining, and kind of silly. But I think Us definitely looks like a step up
Yeah, it could be even better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing about all that with Jordan Peele is now his name is slapped on everything because he can get all of his projects made. And everybody's talking about the Twilight Zone, and then out of nowhere, he's got this YouTube show that's coming on. That's the sci-fi version.
Weird City.
And it's really good. It's better than you would expect.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the first 2 episodes, and it's got tons of people in it.
Yeah.
And
well, they all want to work with him.
It's quirky and funnier. Oh yeah.
That Twilight Zone cast is insane. Right, there's so many the huge stars showing up in that because they all want to work with Jordan Peele. But then he also, he's doing an Amazon show with Al Pacino and Logan Lerman about Nazi hunters. That's kind of based on Simon Wiesenthal. So he's kind of branching out. He's not really just doing one thing. And a documentary series just dropped on Amazon the other day, the Lorena Bobbitt docu-series.
Yep.
And he produced that too. So he's really kind of, it seems like he's got kind of varied interests, so I think that's kind of what makes him great, is that it's not just all one thing for him. Like he's very kind of, he'll do everything, all kinds of different genres, and mix things up a little bit. And, that's why, I think a guy like that is, a guy I definitely want to follow,
For sure.
So
I like that guy.
Speaking of guys that I like, I was kind of sad to see, it was already official, but I was kind of sad to see Ben Affleck officially hang it up as Batman this week on the Jimmy Kimmel show. So he showed up on the Jimmy Kimmel show and they actually hoisted the batsuit to the rafters, replacing Matt Damon's studded thong from behind the candelabra. A movie that I really enjoyed, but watching Michael Douglas shoot fuck faces at Matt Damon, I must say, really disturbed me.
Can't watch Ant-Man the same way ever again.
Yeah, exactly. And it was.
I feel like in a way it was a little unceremonious.
Yeah.
I really wish that Affleck would have put out an actual press release or something about it, or something a little more I don't know, say respectful, genuine to the fans, because
the truth is respectful to the fans though.
He seemed like he couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not Batman. Like he went on Kimmel and all these other shows before when he was working on Batman and was very, passionate and excitable. And now he's just kind of like, I guess I'm not doing it. Fuck it.
Dude, he wants out though. He wants
out.
He wants out so badly.
I just think he could have done it just a little more respectfully to the fans that were like, there's it's silly, but there's people fucking depressed and crying over him. And that's you know what? If you're depressed and crying over fucking Ben Affleck stepping down as Batman, then go get some therapy. He definitely got bigger problems. I don't disagree with you, but I just think he could have done it just a little bit more.
He's still a producer on it too, so he's still getting paid. I guess that's the thing.
Well, is he now the Timothy Dalton of the Batman franchises?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because he's still a producer, though. That's the thing. So he's going to get paid.
No, he's the Timothy Dalton. He's the Timothy.
But in terms of being underrated, because Timothy Dalton put 2 movies that nobody really ever talks about, and they're better than you would expect. Yeah. And
I love the Dalton Bond movies.
Yeah,
I do too. I actually was just talking about them too. Both Dalton Bond movies are perfect.
We've talked about them on this podcast numerous times.
Those are both 10 on 10 Bond movies for me. In fact, I'm seeing Living Daylight on 35mm in April because my buddy King in Montreal managed to buy a 35mm print on those prints they circulate illegally, right? Because it's illegal to own 35mm prints, but this guy is involved in the black market a little bit for these, just for that. Tell
us more about the crimes of your friends. On the public.
What's his legal name and address?
I'm not going to say what his legal name is, but it's it's kind of interesting though. So he's
at the end of the podcast. Chris is going to ask me to cut this out.
Yeah, nah.
There's already a knock at the door.
Every week, Chris asked me to take something out.
You can actually buy them on. eBay. I ask you to take things out to protect you, Paul. They're to protect you from yourself. Okay. Your girlfriend will thank me.
No.
To protect you, I'm protecting you from yourself, Paul. But
nobody can protect me from myself.
But anyway, no, I love. I think both Timothy Dalton movies are actually perfect Bond movies. Love both of them. Especially Living Daylights, but both of them are terrific.
So Affleck said,
yeah, I guess he is kind of the Timothy Dalton of the Bonds. I guess that makes the Val Kilmer and George Clooney, George Lazenbys, I guess.
Yeah,
but
those are definitely the Lazenbys.
Yeah.
So Affleck said on the show, he said, I tried to direct a version of it and worked with a really good screenwriter, but just couldn't come up with a version of, I couldn't crack it. So I thought it was time to let someone else take a shot at it. They've got some really good people.
Relatively long running for a Batman, though, because if you think about it, Michael Keaton only made 2, Val Kilmer made 1, George Clooney made 1. The one that ran the longest was Bale, who did a trilogy. That was 3 movies so far. He might come back at some point way down the line. But well, I don't know, maybe 20 years down the line, who knows? But you know, if they do,
well, Batman, I mean, Affleck did 3 movies as the character, but not.
Well, I mean, he was in Suicide Squad.
He actually never, but he actually never did a Batman movie, which is.
I mean, I would think that Batman v Superman was kind of a Batman.
That was more of a Batman than a Superman movie.
But that's still kind of a Batman movie. You've still got the whole Superman thing going on as well. So
does it count that he sent an email in Wonder Woman?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he sends an email in Wonder Woman. It's true.
No, he sends a package, not an email. He sends an email.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He sends the picture.
I mean, I wonder how they're going to write him out, though, of the Wonder Woman series, though, and Aquaman, because I feel like he's still there. They're just going to he left.
Well, I don't think they're going to be connected anymore, right? They're going the route of just saying they are what they are.
Yeah.
No, they're connected. There's just they're taking a step back now to just focus on the solo efforts without being tied as closely as, like, say, the Marvel movies have been.
Sure.
So that's really their focus right now. It's still a connected universe, but it's not. That's not the focus, and that's where they kind of lost, their way. It was they were trying too hard to intertwine everything, but it is absolutely still the DCU, and they're still going to connect. The only ones that aren't is the Joker movie.
Well, my theory, though, is still that the Joker movie, because if you look at the timeline, it takes place in the 80s. I feel like that's going to be connected to the new Batman.
And here's the other thing:
he would be, because that Batman would have been born in the late 80s, right? Probably.
But how do you explain Jared Leto?
They're not going to do that. Whatever. They're just going to ignore it, just like they did with Ben Affleck. But the
Leto movies are apparently, there's been
canceled,
reports, unconfirmed, but reports that the Leto movies are no more.
I mean, of course. Why would they?
I mean, he's getting into Morbius. He's not even thinking about it right now.
But with Birds of Prey, don't you have to connect it since Harley Quinn is consistent between the two?
And here's the thing. If you look at some of the set pictures of Harley Quinn, of her tattoos in particular, they're scratched off. Like, she has the tattoos, like the one that says Puddin', it says like Puddin' something else. Like, it's everything is, and then there's like the name of the Joker, like a line gone through it on her tattoos. So my best estimate for Birds of Prey is that Harley Quinn is basically going to be on this path of, I don't like Joker anymore. We broke up and he's out of my life, and they're going to probably try and make it like, the whole thing that people are always trying to like fight over is like, oh, how are we celebrating this abusive relationship? She should be like, out of it. We can't portray anything that's actually real. We have to make it that she would do the right thing rather than be a psychopath that she is, and continue to see the Joker, which she does. So,
anyway. I mean, I think they're going to vaguely connect it, just like the Justice League movie. But with
just won't see Joker.
I really think, though, that Joaquin Phoenix is your new Joker, and that what it's going to be the Batman. Because if it's taking place in the 80s, and and Thomas Wayne as a character in it, then clearly they're going to have if let's say he gets his. They have Batman around that time. Bruce Wayne is born around the time of that Joker movie. It makes sense to me that that would be the new Batman, and they'll work at it that way,
I think
that gets around the age group that they want. I think they probably want somebody who was born in the late 80s, early 90s.
I think the trouble is locking Joaquin down, though, because that's why he turned down Doctor Strange. He didn't want that commitment. He didn't want to be in a bunch of movies.
Come back, though. That's the thing. Like, he could come back if he wanted to, but they'd have to age him up a bit, or he doesn't necessarily have to come back. I'm sure that if he signed up for a Joker movie, though, they probably signed him for more than one movie.
So that is the Joker
iconic character.
Do you think it's going to still be rated R and be a standalone, or are they going to still bring this down to PG-13 like they have with everything else?
I would bet PG-13. I'm always going to bet PG-13 because an R is kind of a death sentence for the box office. And even though you may say, well, but it's lower budget, it's like, but money.
Yes, would they rather make 100 million or would they rather make 200 million?
Yeah, I mean,
and PG-13's like R at this point anyway. All you have to do is have a slightly less profanity because the Once Upon a Time Deadpool.
You just can't say fuck. That's it.
You get one fuck in a PG-13. Yeah. Alita has one fuck.
Yeah.
A well-timed.
So does Isn't It Romantic?
Yeah, so you get one fuck, which I don't understand who makes these rules, but it's kind of silly.
Isn't It Romantic actually has kind of a funny moment in it because they make fun of the PG-13, the fact that you can't say fuck. So she wakes up, Rebel Wilson wakes up in a PG-13 rom-com, and every time she says fuck or swears, there's like a horn goes off in the background, and then she hears the horn. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And it's beep, 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 beep. And then she has there's a sex scene where she has sex with Liam Hemsworth, and then they jump into bed, and then it cuts to the next morning and she's waking up. And then she's like, wait, what happened? And then she tries to have sex with them again, and then it cuts to the next morning and she's waking up, and it just keeps cutting away. It's pretty funny.
That is funny. Well, that movie's not going to win any Oscars, the Oscars are coming up.
Yes. And did they ever back down in record time?
Is this not the biggest shit show of the Oscars coming up? I mean, I can't think of
This is the third reversal,
time.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I can't think of another time that the Oscars have been such a fucking just... I mean, I know it has been. Don't get me wrong. But
I think this is the first... I can't remember one either. Probably since the '89 one when Rob Lowe and Snow White.
That's with Rob Lowe and Snow White was what I was thinking. I don't even think I watched that. I was just too young.
I was too young. I was probably about 6 years old when that happened. But it's funny. As much of a disaster as it is, I'm also way more excited to watch the Oscars this year than I've been in years past.
Oh yeah,
because I think it's going to be a disaster.
Show.
Yeah, it's going to be
awful.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fucking train wreck. And I mean, I'm really excited to live drunk roast it this year. It's going to be a blast.
We're going to cut things. Why don't you cut the fucking asshole from Price Waterhouse Cooper who comes on and gives a speech, or the head of the Academy, comes on to pat herself on the back. It's cut these people instead,
But they weren't even cutting it. This is a fake controversy because they were still going to air it. They were just going to condense the walk up and show it later in the show, and nobody would have ever known. They should have just never announced it, and nobody would have even known any different.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, they reversed their decision to air these awards off camera or to pre-tape, whatever the fuck it was. And now they basically said everything's going to stay the same. So all the brouhaha and hubbub that's gone on over this bullshit of changing things, everything is basically back to the way it was, minus the fact that they still don't have a host. So
I kind of don't understand. I kind of don't understand why they're so obsessed though with making it shorter. Because if you're watching the Oscars, you're kind of in it for the long haul. I mean, it's a very, the ratings are dropping, and the ratings are going to continue to drop no matter what they do. I don't know what they're thinking. It's going people are just all of a sudden going to turn in en masse. I just don't think so. It's an award show. It's not that interesting for people to watch, really, unless you're a hardcore film buff. Regular JoBlos. There you go. Don't necessarily watch the Oscars. They just don't, and when I watch them, I watch them because I'm a film critic, and a guy who's really into it. But I always have people over, and we're always drinking and stuff like that. And it's kind of more of an event. We're half watching it. It's not, I don't know. It's not appointment viewing. I like Oscar night and I like Golden Globe night too, but I don't take the ceremony at all seriously.
Why? I mean, why would you? Honestly,
yeah.
I don't understand. People write these long, lengthy pieces about Oscar predictions and what should win, what shouldn't win. It's so fruitless to me. I don't really understand why people do it, because it doesn't matter what you think. Unless you're on the Academy and you're voting, it doesn't matter. This is not a fucking U.S. election where everybody can go vote. This is one small group of people that cast these votes. It's their ceremony, not yours. And people are just I can't believe this lost. It should have won. It's why are you so invested? People are genuinely tricked by this thing that it actually matters.
And I've said it before.
It matters to Hollywood only.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You don't nominate Ethan Hawke for First Reformed, and even Joaquin Phoenix, and even Joaquin Phoenix for You Were Never Really Here, and Lynn Ramsey doesn't get a Best Director nod, and neither does Paul Schrader. To me, it makes no sense. If we're awarding the best movies, well, the best movies haven't been nominated. They haven't been. And it's ridiculous.
At least not to the general public, because if it was the general public that was voting, you'd have shit like Aquaman, you'd have Avengers Endgame. I mean, Black Panther shoot in there, but I'm sorry, I understand the cultural significance of Black Panther. It's not the best comic book movie that came out last year.
Okay, but if people were voting, though, you have to know that Black Panther would probably win Best Picture.
Well, this isn't the Blockbuster Awards, so they can go screw. But
maybe. I mean, listen, I look at the JoBlo Awards, which is completely nominated by the fans. It's what they vote. Black Panther is in there. Avengers Endgame is in there. And that's what the people voted. So yeah, those are going to be in there. But I mean, the bottom line is the people aren't choosing.
I just don't understand though how Ethan Hawke doesn't get nominated for Best Actor for First
or Nicole Kidman for Best Actress.
Yeah, I agree with you. For Destroyer, absolutely. She really deserved it. Like, these are amazing performances. I love Nicole Kidman in Destroyer, although I have to say though, still Ethan Hawke in First Reformed is the one that, even Destroyer, I could see maybe people haven't really had the chance to watch it yet or digest it. But First Reformed came out months ago, acclaimed. Everybody's seen it. How the fuck, if it's your peers voting, they don't vote for Ethan Hawke in First Reformed? It makes no sense to me. It's crazy.
But Chris, I'll tell you,
nobody paid for it.
But Chris, I'll tell you exactly why. The people that are voting are just, they don't see the stuff. They're not critics. They don't see everything. And like, I find those, I don't know if they even did them this year or if they've done them yet, but the pieces where they talk to the Academy voters and they like give their like honest opinion on what they're voting for and why, I find those pretty enlightening. Yeah, like those are pretty like compelling because they're very honest and like, people like, oh, I didn't even see that. I think that's why First Reform, most people haven't seen it. That's why they didn't vote. It's not and that's why the Oscars are such bullshit, because, you get so many movies that are overlooked just because people didn't see them. The people that vote, we just didn't see it. So we're going to put this other movie on a pedestal because everybody's talking about it. And believe me, a lot of the movies that are up there are just because people were talking about them. Not because they're actually good.
Is Ethan Hawke nominated in the Golden Schmoes?
Yes.
Is he?
I think so. Let me look. Hang on.
I'm
almost positive he is.
There was a piece that was just written. I don't know if I don't remember where it was, but they were talking about the campaign that got Shakespeare in Love to win and how that wasn't even what they were going in with. Yeah. And it was all the way at the very end that they were not even pushing it until the last minute. So it's all the campaigns. And it's that controversy we saw a couple of years ago where some song for I think it was some religious movie that nobody had ever heard of got nominated for Best Song.
Yeah, that was last year, and they had to pull it back because the person who had voted, it was one of the people that composed it, like voted for it as well. Yeah, so and they were really kind of pushing it in their category. It's funny, Paul, that book that I got you for Christmas, Down and Dirty Pictures, they talk all about that Oscar campaign.
And that's what it is. They're all campaigns. This is
clearly you haven't read it yet.
I know you've mentioned it a number of times.
It's the Don Johnson record of
all right. Golden Schmoes. This is a good time to plug the Golden Schmoes. If you haven't voted, go to JoBlo.com. It's up there. Go vote. Your vote counts. I run this fucking thing.
Is Ethan Hawke nominated?
These are the best actor nominees of the year, as voted by our readers and nobody else. Bradley Cooper for Stars Born. Okay. John David Washington for BlacKkKlansman.
I can see that.
Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Nope.
Ethan Hawke, First Reformed.
Excellent.
There you go.
Christian Bale for Vice.
I don't get me started on Vice.
I liked it. I didn't love it. There was things about it that were it was a disappointment. I'll say that.
It was well acted, but the movie was not good.
It was like I think Adam McKay was his own worst enemy when it came to that movie, and I think that's what happens too when you make a movie that's totally unchecked by anybody. After the success of The Big Short.
Whenever you decide to like make the facts up yourself or to create a story that's not factual and just kind of, a bunch of shit thrown together, like, oh, I think we got this right. Don't worry, we're not biased in any way. So yeah.
Well, no, they admit to being biased though.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that's if you're making a film like that and you're trying to like tackle it and get all the facts, but you're obviously why is he even making that movie? What's the purpose? It's because of his bias. That's why he even wanted to make it.
There were things about it that rubbed me the wrong way, though. I mean, I'm more in line politically with him, I guess. But the thing is, there were just things about it that bothered me on many different levels. you never find out anything really about Dick Cheney watching that movie. I don't feel like I learned anything about him necessarily that I didn't know beforehand. But getting back to the Golden Schmoes, though, I'm really glad that Ethan Hawke was nominated. I'm glad that people are seeing the movie, and I feel like maybe in some small way I've done my job because I put that up for, that was the movie I reviewed First Reformed probably about 4 times on JoBlo since it came out.
You did do 2.
Talked about it every week. Yeah.
Well, you did the review, and then we did the best movies of 2018. You did one of those.
And I also wrote about it for the wrap up, for the video wrap up that you did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the favorite movies of the year that for Golden Schmoes, which is, again, this is all readers. This is like your everyday. These are people that go to see these fucking movies: Avengers: Infinity War, Mission Impossible: Fallout, A Quiet Place, Spider-Man: Into the Spider-Verse, and Black Panther. That to me feels legitimate. That feels like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right for our readers, for what, or for and listeners, whatever. I think that is pretty spot on in terms of what
for our list.
That's our list, and the Oscars are bullshit because neither one includes Paddington 2.
Well, I actually think you're kind of
people did vote for Paddington 2.
If you're going to talk about the best movies of the year, though, and you look at the best reviewed movies of the year, at least, Paddington 2 would be up there, but so would Leave No Trace. That was a terrific movie, too. There's a lot of
what's Leave No Trace? I don't even know what that is.
With
Ben Foster, right?
Yeah. And then
nobody saw it. I think a lot of times when we look at movies, and a lot of times people look at Oscars, they're like, oh, it's such a brilliant fucking movie. Like Spotlight. How many times have you guys rewatched Spotlight?
No. I've watched, but I have to say though, I've watched First Reformed 3 times.
We know that you've watched First Reformed 1,000 times.
Another movie that should have been nominated too, 8th Grade.
Yeah,
we're talking about the best movies of the year.
Well, 8th Grade did get a nomination from us for Best Actress, I believe. Let me look.
Because if you're talking about movies that down the line we're going to be talking about, 8th Grade is going to be one of those movies that we'll be talking about.
Yeah, best for the JoBlo for Golden Schmoes, Elsie Fisher got a nomination for 8th Grade.
That's good. Who else got nominated?
And she also got nominated for Breakout Performance.
Who else got nominated for Actress?
Bryan Singer.
Let's see. Lady Gaga, Elsie Fisher, Toni Collette for Hereditary. Emily.
That was another one that was overlooked.
And Olivia Colman for The Favorite.
Who was the 5th? Who was the other one?
Emily Blunt. Mary Poppins.
Ugh, really?
Again,
I would have given it to her for A Quiet Place over that.
Yeah, seriously, me too.
Let's see. Supporting actress, Rachel Weisz, Claire Foy for First Man, Emily Blunt for A Quiet Place, Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk, and Emma Stone for The Favorite.
I'm glad that Regina King got nominated, but I have to say I've been also taking issue with the fact that Olivia Colman's up for Best Actress for The Favorite, because that's a supporting performance.
Yeah, they flipped it. It should have been the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. She's supporting character in that film. She is not the lead. It's the same thing when Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar for Best Actor in Silence of the Lambs. I mean, he was supporting actor. It was a supporting performance.
Yeah, who decides it though?
Yeah, he did dominate the film, but he was in it for 20 minutes. It's not Best Actor.
What did Judi Dench win when she was in Shakespeare in Love for like 3 minutes or one scene? And what was it, Best Supporting or Best Actress?
No, supporting.
It was, but still 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said before for Jessica Roth. They keep saying that she was in La La Land. She was in one scene in that movie.
I don't remember her from La La Land.
She's in the dance sequence when they're all going down the street in their multicolored dresses. One song.
I remember she had really good-looking roommates. That was about it.
Yes.
How dare you?
Yeah. All right. So what else are we going to talk about? What's next?
So Hulu, in an interview with Craig Erwich, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He's the senior vice president of originals at Hulu, and he was asked if he would be interested in reviving any of the canceled shows from Netflix, particularly the Marvel shows. And he said this: Marvel has a ton of titles we'd be interested in. It's kind of just depends on when they're ready and who, most importantly, is going to be behind these things, i.e., I guess the show.
I mean, of course Hulu's interested. Disney's going to own them, first of all. Right. And then, second of all, why wouldn't they be? It would bring a whole bunch of new viewers to their Freudian slip. No, they'd bring out a whole bunch of new viewers to their platform. And it annoys me, though, when I see all this great Hulu stuff coming out, though, because we still don't get Hulu in Canada because we've got all kinds of cable provider exclusive right window stuff going on here, and Hulu still hasn't come to Canada, although I've heard that Disney apparently is trying to expand it, so hopefully we will get it at some point. But it's funny because I've been hearing that New Mutants is going to go to Hulu. That's been the rumor for a while.
I mean, it's one of those tricky things, man. That movie's kind of a train wreck in itself, they don't really.
But with Disney owning a big, huge majority of Hulu when the acquisition's all done, couldn't they very easily put their edgier, more mature stuff on Hulu and then keep the safe stuff on Disney Plus?
I think
that's what Iger said last week, is that we would keep Deadpool 2 rated R, and he stated that they would be looking for a place that they could put their more mature rated content, because you can't keep it in the mainstream. I mean, that fucks with their brand identity. So they have to find a place that's like, I don't know, Disney Edge or some shit, give it a name, or just put it on Hulu or somewhere else. And kind of like they did, in the 90s with, throwing it over to one of their other, like, Hollywood Pictures or something. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. It's very exciting. Not really. So speaking of TV, Alex.
Yes, there's a lot of it.
We have a lot of stuff coming out 2019. Tell us about it. That's why you're here. We want to know, what should we look forward to besides Game of Thrones, obviously.
So you started Catch-22, right? Have you seen any of it yet?
I've seen the first episode. There is no embargo date yet, and they claim that the episode was unfinished without special effects or anything like that, but it looked perfect to me. I mean, it was 100%, and it's really good. I don't think it's going to be one of those shows that everybody in the mainstream is going to catch on to. But it's funny. It almost feels very similar to the influences that you saw from the Coens and a lot of Clooney's directing work. It's dark. If you've read the book, it's very faithful to the book.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the rest of it. And I'm blanking. It was Christopher Abbott is the lead character, and I mean he's
Zarian.
Yeah, and he's really solid. It's very mature. There's a good amount of nudity. There is a lot of profanity.
I don't know if I could watch it then.
I know, there's boobs and butts. So
no.
No cocks.
Not that I've seen in episode 1, but you never know. There's 5 more chapters to go. But you know what? I will say this. Speaking of recent reviews, if you are a fan of nudity and profanity, Doom Patrol has it in spades.
Really?
That show is the first episode. You've got a scene of Brendan Fraser banging a chick, and he's yelling at her, "Who's the fox?" while he's grabbing her boob and it's flopping around. So they kind of went the opposite direction with Doom Patrol that I was expecting. It feels very similar to Titans and the other DC shows, but because they're on DC Universe, it feels like they just swear every other word to make it shown that they're edgier and they can swear.
I don't.
But I mean,
Titans definitely feels over the top. It's like they took a CW show and they're just like, throw lots of blood and swearing in there. That's
Doom Patrol, and I mean it's got Alan Tudyk doing the voiceover through the whole thing, and it's very self-referential. So the first line in the show is, "Oh, another superhero show. Have you hung yourself yet?" So they mock it a lot, but the cast is good. Timothy Dalton is great, and he's very Professor X. And the whole time I'm watching it, I could have totally seen him in the X-Men movies if Patrick Stewart had not taken the role. He would have been really good.
I really liked Timothy Dalton on Penny Dreadful.
Yes, he looks and acts kind of the same. He's more of like a supporting guest star type role on it. He's not in it as much as they make it seem from the trailers, but he is good. The other good show that just started is Miracle Workers with Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi as God.
I've heard mixed things about that.
It's a
tough sell for a long running show. It feels like it'd be a one season and done.
It is a one season and done. It's only 8 episodes. It's designed as an event series, so it's not meant to go beyond the one season. And the way that they sell it is that it makes it look like it's Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi, but they're supporting characters. It's more of an ensemble show. And the actress Geraldine Viswanathan from Blockers, she's really the lead. And it's dark. And I mean, if you've ever it's not a spoiler that's going to matter, but if you've ever wanted to see Bill Maher's penis explode, this is the show for you.
Bill Maher's penis explodes.
Yes. And that's not an analogy. That's not a euphemism. That's exactly what happens.
So you actually see you see his cock and then you see it blow up.
You don't see the visual of it, but you see the after and the effects of what it does. It's very fun. And that was a good show. It's you need some suspension of disbelief because it's really goofy, but it's a fun show. We talked about Russian Doll. That I can't say anything more about how great that show is. But
you said that Hannah's pretty shitty though.
Oh
right?
God, is it bad?
Yeah. It sounds like they're just remaking the movie though, and the movie
that's exactly what they did. The first episode,
because the movie's so good. Why would they do that?
So it's like all of the stuff in the movie that made it kind of a fairy tale and made it kind of this just over the top kind of superhero-ish kind of spy thing is gone.
You mean the things that made it interesting?
Yes. Now it's just a gritty spy drama where the first episode is essentially the 20 minutes of the movie, the opening of the movie, expanded for an hour with nothing interesting added to it. And you just happen to see Hannah discovering that she's going through puberty, and she puts her hand in her pants and then goes, "Oh, what's this?" and then tastes it. So if you want to see that, then Amazon Prime's got a show for you. But,
what the fuck?
And it's Joel Kinnaman is in it for 2 scenes, and it's just it doesn't have any reason for existing. It's the equivalent of a high school production of a famous movie or a stage play. It just has no purpose to exist.
I mean, they have to do, God, I mean, the original's got Cate Blanchett, Eric Bana, and Saoirse Ronan, and with the music by Chemical Brothers, and whatever, and let's remake it with these TV actors, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not good. But I don't know if either one of you are watching the new season of True Detective, but it is really good.
Oh,
I watched 2 episodes and then it wasn't that I lost interest. It's just that that was like right before I went on a trip, so I haven't returned to it. It's compelling, but within the first 2 episodes, I wasn't feeling as drawn in as I was with the first season. But it's good, just not. It's gonna be impossible to top that first season.
I haven't started it yet. I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm probably gonna wait until all the episodes are out. I guess
I'm gonna wait to binge it.
And I think it ends in like a week, and it doesn't. I'm not saying who he is, but Michael Rooker's on the show, and that's enough to make it worth watching.
I heard that Stephen Dorff is really good, and so is Mahershala Ali. Both of them.
Well, Mahershala Ali is always good, but this Stephen Dorff, this role could lead to a lot more for him because it's some of the best work he's done in years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was great in Somewhere, the Sofia Coppola movie, and he tends to be good in stuff, even when he's just got kind of small roles. He or even if it's just 0 budget B movies, I always find he's solid. It's funny though. The thing I'm most excited for this year, besides Game of Thrones, I guess, my event thing, and the one thing that I kind of want to review, Alex, I'll have to ask your permission for that though, is the Deadwood movie, because I'm a
you can have it.
Fiend for Deadwood. Deadwood is probably one of my favorite shows of all time, and
cocksucker.
Cannot.
San Francisco cocksucker.
San Francisco.
I hope he coughs and hacks for half the movie.
Oh, I hope so too.
Switching.
It's gonna be so good, man. I mean, I cannot wait for that.
Cocksucker.
Yeah.
That is going to be really good, and I think that the other element of that, speaking of Ian McShane, is American Gods season 2's coming up, and I've seen that.
I never watched American Gods season 1. I saw the first episode and I liked it. I just, for some reason, never got back to it.
So it's the same problem. Well, I shouldn't say problem, but Brian Fuller was showrunner for season 1, and then he left due to disagreements. Same thing he did with Star Trek Discovery. Yeah. And now season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, it's good, but it's totally different than what it was in the first season. Same thing with American Gods. They lost Gillian Anderson.
Does it feel more Star Trek-y, though? Season 2?
Of Discovery? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it has. I've heard it does.
I've heard it's more in line with, like, Star Trek. Like
I know a lot of people that didn't like the first season that have given season 2 a chance and love it.
Well, I loved in the big screen movies, Bruce Greenwood was great as Pike, and I'm like, how is Anson Mount gonna equal it? And he's really good. I think he almost feels like he is a younger version of Bruce Greenwood in a lot of ways, but it's it is definitely more Star Trek-y. When you watch the first episode of the season, it's very different than the first episode of the first season. It feels more in line with what you would have expected from a Star Trek show. It's more propulsive. There's more action. Yeah. That first hour is better than some Hollywood sci-fi movies these days. Yeah. But with American Gods, the season 2 of American Gods, it's good. But if you like the first season, this is a 180. It tries to keep some of the same things. Ian McShane is still good. The cast is still solid, but it just feels like they brought somebody else in and they couldn't continue with what the first season was doing.
Yeah. What about the Breaking Bad movie? I'm assuming that's going to be late this year.
Yeah,
that should debut. They're saying it's going to go to Netflix,
right?
And AMC. So I don't know how they're going to do that.
I mean, I feel like it's just going to drop on Netflix when we least expect it. It's just going to be all of a sudden we're going to see an ad for it online. They're going to release a trailer and it's like, oh yeah, Friday.
That'd be a fucking treat. So some people are saying they're thinking that maybe they'll bring back fucking Walter White. I think that would be. I have mixed feelings about that because on one hand, I'd love to see Walter White back, and I think it's feasible that you could have him survive.
Oh sure,
because it's still you didn't see him buried in a grave.
Right, they were checking his pulse at the end of the series, but I don't think they'll bring him back. I think that if anything, they're going to treat this kind of like they did with Better Call Saul, where it could very possibly happen, but making it its own thing is going to allow you to focus. They could change the tone entirely in focusing on Aaron Paul's character. And I think that would be the right way to go. Is his
character enough to focus on, though? Because it's called Breaking Bad, sure, and Aaron Paul was great in the show, but he was always a sidekick.
There might be more to it than that, though, and there were a lot of great episodes that were just about Aaron Paul's character, though, that were fantastic. And the movie's probably only going to be like an hour and a half, 2 hours, so it's not I don't think necessarily asking too much. But the thing is, the whole thing about Bryan Cranston possibly coming back, I'll say this. My knee-jerk reaction is that it's a bad idea because I liked the way that it ended. However, Vince Gilligan, I thought that Better Call Saul was a bad idea for a show too, and Better Call Saul is absolutely terrific. So it shows that Vince Gilligan and his crew really kind of know what they're doing, and it's so if
they know these characters they create.
Yeah, and if they had a compelling reason to bring everybody back, then I feel like there must be something to it, right? Like there must be something more to it than they're letting on. And I'm curious to see if Saul Goodman ends up in the Aaron Paul movie because he's still out there. So potentially he could, so
that'd be actually pretty cool. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think that if they were going to go the route of bringing Walter White back, I think there's a really feasible way to do it where almost in a Jon Snow kind of way where like he kind of dies in a way. Or no. Besides that part, but I mean, like, the whole thing that was more of it was an historical thing. Jon Snow was like kill the boy to become a man, and I feel like you could do something similar with Walter White, where it's like strip him like he's died, like Walter White is dead, and now he could just like be whoever he wants, and like he could come back as like this mega fucking kingpin fucking villain if he wanted to.
Well, presumably if he survived, though, he'd be in jail.
Maybe.
So if they should not make it like that Jesse needs some help, so he makes a quick collect call and he talks to him. That would be a cheap way of doing it. But I mean, I like your idea, Paul, but I think that he kind of went through the whole arc and finally got that redemption at the end. To make him go full villain again kind of feels like it would be tacking it on in a lot of ways.
But that's who he was. Like, remember he when he told his wife, he was like, the truth is, he's like, I really loved it. I loved doing it. I loved being that. Like, that's who he really was. He wasn't the fucking biology teacher that had cancer. He was a fucking drug kingpin. Right. And that was the struggle that he had, was accepting who he really was, because he was pretending to be, I'm a good guy. But dude, you're not. You're a fucking drug dealing fucking kingpin murderer. And I think that's what, if he came back, I would make him come back bigger and badder. That's that's how I would do it.
It's like in Lily of the Valley, that episode where he poisons the boy, and it's just to get Jesse to do shit that he wants him to do, and that's that's a sociopath does that, and it's just kind of interesting.
He lets what's her face die when he could have saved her. Like, I mean, the thing is, we love Walter White so much as a character, but the truth is, he's a fucking villain. He's a
no,
bad.
it's true. He's a born killer. That's the thing that's so good about the show, though, is that they took this guy, they cast an extremely likable actor in an extremely likable part, and then slowly just kind of stripped away his humanity over the course of the show. And that was what was brilliant about it. You know, that was why I think it was such a great show.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we're rooting for him because he's
I wanted him to get away. I wanted him to get away. It's funny. I watched it with my friend Joanna cried at the end when he died. You know, and it was because he was evil.
Think about it. The main reason that we root for him and we wanted him to live and to overcome everyone is because he was the less evil of all the other people. Think of the people he was fighting against. They were actually worse than him, if you can believe that. Even though Walter White,
I feel like he's almost worse than Gus.
He was, because he did some the poisoning and letting Kristen Ritter's character he'd watching her. I mean, he did some things that were beyond Gus. Gus knew what he was doing, and it was like we were discovering Walter White along the way, kind of come to terms with these decisions. Gus already knew what he was, but at that point, Walter White didn't know yet. So reaching the end, and now he's embraced that he's a villain. He kind of gets what's coming to him. So I don't want to see him come back. I don't want to see, maybe name check him, but I don't want to see him anything else with his character. I would love to, but I don't.
I just, if he did come back, I would want to see him come back as a fully fledged villain that's embraced who he is and just kind of had that. That's what I would want to see.
Change his name to Lex Luthor.
Yeah, why not? So, anything else that we should be looking forward to on the horizon for TV?
In the very near future, not anything brand new. I'd say that all the stuff that HBO's got coming later in the year, I'm excited for Watchmen and I'm excited for Game of Thrones. They've got a killer slate, but...
You know who's in Watchmen?
Everybody, Don Johnson.
That's all that
I want to see what they're going to do with it, because it's taking something and putting it in a totally different direction than how you previously saw it. And I'm very excited to see how they put that all together.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't honestly, in my personal opinion, Zack Snyder's Watchmen film is perfect. There's no film version or another redo of that is necessary or could ever top that. So making it something completely different, but with shades of Watchmen, I think is a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant way to go. And I have no idea what they're going to do. And that's great. Like if they were redoing Watchmen, you'd be like, oh, okay, so I'll be looking for this part and I'll be looking for this part. Now there ain't shit you could look for. You know, you're just going to find, you're like, yes. So that's cool.
I think that the cool thing though, is that we know when it's coming. So there's a limited wait for that. I think that what kind of catches me is, if you ask me today, I don't think of any other shows off the top of my head, but with the way Netflix drops things a week before you find out about it a week before it finally hits the air. I mean, we could be hearing about stuff very soon that we haven't even talked about yet. So I might have more for you soon. As of right now, Stranger Things, that's the other one that's coming out. I'm supposed to be getting screeners for that sooner rather than later. I'm very excited for that.
Really? When is that coming out though? This summer, right?
July 4th. Yeah.
They're already sending out the screeners. Wow.
Yeah, I'm excited for Stranger Things to a point, but season 2 really lowered my excitement level. It was really just felt like such a rehash of season 1. So I'm hoping they've found their footing for season 3, but I feel like they're kind of taking the romantic angle to a point with the kids, which I think is smart because these kids are growing up and they're at that point where they would be discovering that. And, you know, everybody loves love.
And I just went back and rewatched the first and second season, one after the other. And I felt the same way as you about season 2. On a second viewing, I liked it a lot more.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see liking it better, but I don't know. Season 1 kind of just snuck in and fucking made a huge impact, like a cultural impact.
Yeah.
So season 2 had a tall order to fill in terms of like being anywhere near as good. So, but season 3 has they have a chance. I'll give it a shot. I'll watch it.
I've got one more recommendation. This is the last one, then we can move on. My last recommendation is stop watching The Walking Dead. If anybody's watching it, stop, because that show fucking sucks. I loved that show and I love the comics. I've seen screeners for the first few episodes of this part of this. I cannot stand it. And everybody's leaving. There's no point in watching it anymore. It is so freaking boring. That's all I have to say.
And now they have the movies. I'm actually interested to see the Rick movie. And it seems like now Michonne would be in that too, since she's leaving the show.
And they just said that King Ezekiel, he's going to be leaving the show, which, if you've read the comics, we know how that's...
anyways.
But, I mean, who's going to be left on the show that we even give a crap about watching? We're going to watch Father Gabriel? He's the most boring character ever.
What about Gay Jesus?
He just died.
Did he? They killed Gay Jesus?
They killed off Gay Jesus.
What the fuck? They killed Gay Jesus. God damn it.
And who's the guy who played Red Skull in Infinity War? He's on there. I can't remember his name. Yeah. He does impressions like crazy. They cut his arm off at the end of the first part of the season, like what happened to Rick in the comics. He looks like Rick now, so I think they're kind of turning him into the new Rick. I can't watch it.
It's really kind of just the one thing that they did not count on is the intense fucking the grueling shit that the actors have to go through year after year to keep this show alive. I don't think they really factored that in, and it's really kind of been a roller coaster for everybody.
I think they're kind of. I mean, I haven't watched that show in years, and I mean, I think they're kind of losing it though. It sounds like a lot of people are leaving, and it sounds like a lot of fans aren't watching anymore either. Like the ratings have dropped quite a bit. So I don't know.
I mean, when you lose your key players, you know, they still have what's his nuts, right, with the crossbow, Daryl,
he's also useless. All he does is sit there and brood and eat spam or whatever, raccoons or whatever the hell he's doing. Here's what I'm going to tell you right now. My prediction is that within the next 1 to 2 seasons, the new leader of those characters is going to be Negan.
Yeah, I feel like that's what they're building towards.
And it's garbage because that would be like making the governor the leader of the heroes. That you can't redeem somebody that's that disgusting.
Well, Rick, let's try and forget about that time I smashed that kid's head in front of y'all.
He essentially said that in the premiere episode.
That was yesterday. What have I done today?
I only kill dead people now.
I actually really like Negan in the comics. I think he's a fucking complex son of a bitch character, but I love him. But yeah, I mean, I feel like they've just gotten so off the reservation, and I think this is the problem with adapting shows. You know, they're a lot of times they forget what's compelling about adapting that material, and they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna make it our own." Like, whoa, wait a minute now. If it's your own, make your own shit. If you're adapting something, maybe I don't know, just follow along with what's going on.
It's a lot of greed too. I think the shows has gone on for way too long.
Well, you know, another show that we haven't talked about that's coming out is The Boys. Have you seen that?
No, the screeners have not come over yet. I'm still waiting on them, but I have high hopes for that. But that could very easily go the same direction as Walking Dead or Preacher, and they could just do it a disservice. Yeah.
And it's a very... I don't know how they adapt it. I haven't read all of The Boys.
Preacher lost me after the first season.
Yeah, Preacher was fuck. I don't even.
But I liked the cast. I mean, I liked the cast and I liked the characters, but the show is just ugh.
The show is not the comics. I've read the comics. That's the problem. They are seminal, fucking outstanding, fucking slabs of storytelling, and the fact that they're like, well, we're just gonna do our own thing. It's like, no, you can't really do that. There's so many key moments in Preacher that need to be captured. They're so awesome that I've always looked forward to seeing. And at this point, they're just like, nah, we're just doing our own thing. And I'm like, well, why even adapt it? Why even adapt Preacher? Why call it Preacher? Call it something else.
And they pulled it more in line with season 3, and they keep hitting some of those really high notes. Like you've got the Allfather, and you've got that cult of vampires that Cassidy runs into. They've got all of those in there, but they tweak them and change them, and I'm left going, it was perfect in the comics. You could have adapted it 1 for 1 and would have been brilliant, but instead you change it, and what's the point? It's slightly different, and that's not original.
I'm kind of curious now. I wanted to watch Counterpoint, but then I hear that they canceled it.
They did.
Counterpart, yeah. So
that's a hard one. That's a hard show to keep alive, though.
Well,
that's just,
I guess
it's too low key.
So I guess now is the time to get into the big topic that you wanted to talk about. So I'll let you introduce it, Paul.
It's not really a big topic. I just think it's worth discussing. So projections now are saying that Captain Marvel is looking to have $100+ million weekend, which is certainly possible. That's what the tracking is. I'm going to be honest. I don't really know how they get their tracking numbers. I guess from pre-sales and things like that.
It's probably tracking numbers are always off, though. You know, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. They don't really make much sense to me sometimes. You know, they don't really.
Yeah, like early tracking for Aquaman was like a 60 or 50 million weekend, and yeah, we saw how that went. So yeah, I don't really put much stock in tracking because I haven't really seen the evidence-based analytics that go into that.
Happy Death Day 2 was supposed to be #1 this weekend, and Alita was supposed to flop, and Alita's #1.
Dude, I'm telling you, Alita is gonna fucking do well.
The Lego movie was supposed to make like 60 million, and it came in half of that.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I have
44% this weekend too.
As we've discussed before, I think the word of mouth with Alita is going to really carry over.
We'll know next weekend. We'll know on the second weekend how it's going to do.
That's true.
So that'll be a conversation for next week's podcast.
There it is. So anyways, 100 million they're projecting, whoever they are, for Captain Marvel. I think it's possible, but I have my doubts. And a big part of my doubts is kind of the online backlash that Brie Larson is getting, and basically for her kind of grandiose press tour, and she's really putting off a lot of people. And I think that that's going to actually hurt the box office. And the other day I was on Twitter and I saw IGN posted, they posted a question thing. It's like, are you going to see Captain Marvel opening weekend? And if you go down the comments, I didn't see a single comment that said yes. And there was thousands of them. Every comment was like, no, I'm out. I'm good. I'm not seeing it. Nah. And I think the easy thing to say, and this is like ever since Star Wars The Last Jedi, it's like, oh, well, this is just all angry white males that are saying that, which is not the case in there either. But if you posted the same thing from IGN and said, hey, are you going to see Avengers Endgame opening weekend? It would be a whole other ball of wax. Every comment would most likely be, fuck yes, can't wait, excited, dying, oh my God, I can't wait.
That's why everybody's going to go see it, though. That's the thing, because it leads into Avengers Endgame. I just don't understand how people are not going to go see it. I really think that you're people that don't think it's going to do well. I just don't know what they're smoking. You know, I think it's going to do extremely well. It may not necessarily do Black Panther numbers, because you have to remember that was kind of a cultural moment too, and that had a big impact.
Well, wouldn't this be a cultural moment?
In a way, I mean, not quite the same though, because you have had female-led superhero movies though. I would say that Wonder Woman was kind of a cultural moment in that regard. But the Brie Larson stuff though, I mean, the backlash. Look, I mean, I do agree she is posturing a lot, and I think it kind of turned me off when she said that it was her form of advocacy. But there was one headline this week that kind of bugged me, where people were basically saying that she doesn't want white males on her press tour. Now, if you look at the quote, okay, that's not at all what she said.
That's not what she said.
She wanted it to be more inclusive, and I kind of get that. I mean, it's funny because I just got back.
I'll tell you exactly what she said.
But let me just okay, you read the quote.
Okay, so this is her quote. About a year ago, I started paying attention to what my press days look like and the critics reviewing movies, and noticed it appeared to be overwhelmingly white male. So that was her comment.
Mm-hmm. And she's right, but she's right. She's right in that regard. So keep going.
So that was her comment. And then recently she made a big show of how she handpicked somebody to interview her that was a disabled a female. Mm-hmm. It's great. I think it's great for that person to have that opportunity, but you have to ask the question, why does Brie Larson make a big show of it? It's press. Why does she just do it and let it happen? But instead, she can't just do that. She can't just do that. She has to say, oh, and look what I did. I picked this disabled Black journalist. Look at me. Look at what I've done. And it's kind of like, listen, if you want to advocate and you want to do that, I think that's wonderful. Honestly, I think it's great if you want to diversify, bring everybody and their sister in. I think it's great. The more voices, the better. But Brie Larson isn't just doing that. She's making a show of it. And that is what's putting people off. And here's the other thing. She is, whether you like it or not, she's using the white male as a target to kind of help build that up. And because she says white male in just about everything she did. And this is what she said a year ago. Let me see. Here it is. When she was talking about A Wrinkle in Time reviews, she said,
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him. I want to know what that film meant to women of color, to biracial women, to teen women of color, to teens that are biracial. And for the third time, I don't hate white dudes.
Here's the problem with that. That's basically saying, Chris, that she doesn't give a fuck what you have to say and that your opinion doesn't matter. Do you agree with that? Do you think that you should be able to put in your 2 cents, or that what you have to say doesn't matter because you're not a black female?
Here's my counterpoint, okay? I think there's more nuance to the question than that, okay? I think it stems from the fact there was a comment that Tessa Thompson made at Sundance last year that was very interesting, okay? Because Sundance last year was the first year that they brought in consciously a lot of movies by people of color, right? They diversified the lineup, which ended up paying off this year. Not as much last year, but it paid off this year because the lineup was actually terrific. But what happened was there were some mixed reviews initially for Sorry to Bother You, which ended up doing very well. And Tessa Thompson said something which was actually quite measured and quite reasonable, I thought, where she said that, the thing that she didn't like was that she noticed that there were very few black film critics that were there in order to review Sorry to Bother You. And this is a movie that was made for that community. It's a movie that you can definitely enjoy if you're white, and I certainly did, but it was targeted to that demographic. And she kind of wanted to know why there weren't more opportunities. It was too bad that demographic didn't get a chance to review that movie and to praise that movie. And if you went last year at Sundance and you went to the lineup of the press screenings, where all the critics were, it was overwhelmingly white and male. It's a fact. That's what it is. And then when Sorry to Bother You came out on Blu-ray, it has all these quotes, loving it. Every single one of those critics is white and male, though. And it's how come there were no black voices that could speak up for that movie that were there. And this year they did make a conscious effort to bring in more diversity and to have something 20% of the accredited journalists to be, minorities, right? And I think it really paid off. I think it worked really well. I got to know a lot of them this year. They were helped out with their travel costs. A lot of them are really nice. There was one guy, Randy Jones, who, he had some. I kind of like to plug his GoFundMe this week because he's, a young guy. I met him at a party. We had a great time talking. 21-year-old, I think 20 actually. Oh, I shouldn't have given him that booze, but because it's the show in the U.S. No, but anyway, young guy, and he was saving up to go to South by Southwest, but now his laptop was stolen. And
I retweeted his.
I saw that.
Tweet.
Yeah. And and it's sad because when you start out like that, and that's a big kick in the ass, I think, a little bit. But it really paid off this year, though. I think having the diverse people kind of work there, get involved, and there were a lot more interesting critics, and there were a lot more interesting reviews, and there was a lot more interesting debate this year. So I think that really paid off quite well, and I'm a white male. I was still there. It didn't affect my access at all. It was just great to have these people there. And I think that, what Larson, though, I think was saying with the Wrinkle in Time thing, and I don't know that she necessarily phrased it the right way, although we also weren't there for the whole speech.
Oh, you can watch the whole speech. That's what she said. I watched the whole speech.
The thing is, what she said is, I think what she meant to say is that it wasn't necessarily aimed at that audience, right? I mean, if you watch Wrinkle in Time, I think, it's a Disney movie. It's kind of aimed at everybody, but I think that her interpretation was that it wasn't aimed at that audience, and that she was looking at the reviews of it, and that they were white males didn't like it. But fair enough. But
look at the audience score for
black critics didn't like it. Black critics didn't like it either.
Exactly. So that's why her point is bullshit.
I also think that there was a bit of kissing up to Ava DuVernay also, though, involved in that a little bit too. So and like you said, it's posturing. A lot of it is posturing. I wasn't.
It is, but see, that's the problem.
I was not offended by that, though. I don't see why people are so offended. Like, it didn't really.
I think the biggest thing is that it diminishes. Listen, if she said, "I don't want to hear what a black man has to say about a specific movie," would you consider that racist?
Of course.
Okay, so why would this not be the same thing?
Because white people have survived on top for hundreds of thousands of years. I think we can stand Brie Larson's commentary.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Okay, part of it is also
Is that not the same thing as racism? Yes or no?
No, but we're not. It's not the same
it's
thing.
Not.
Because,
Why not?
Because white people are not disadvantaged. They're not historically disadvantaged. You know, it's a fact, man.
What do you mean by that, though?
Yeah, it is. It's a fact. You know, and I don't like this whole thing when we're getting into politics now, and I don't really like to talk about that because we don't see necessarily eye to eye on some of these things.
We don't, but
I don't agree. I don't like it when people call minorities racist, and say you're racist. Actually, not really. Maybe in certain cases potentially, but I just, I don't know, man. I don't think you can say that, that's being racist. So her saying that she doesn't want, white critics to watch to her movie. I don't think it's racist. I don't think it's sexist. I just don't.
Part of the flip side is
I think Alex is right.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that, because if you say that one race is not allowed to do something, that's racism.
But you're not saying that they're not allowed. I think this is the thing. She's saying that she wants to see more, or she thinks she doesn't care what white critics say. If it's the same thing as when we're talking about when we get criticized for our things that we write online, where we say we liked a movie or hated a movie, and everybody says, "Oh, the studio paid you off." Like, you know what? It's our opinion. We're entitled to it. Really doesn't matter if she wants to do this or not. If we go out and love Captain Marvel or hate it, it's ultimately everybody needs to make up their own mind. And if they go and they're offended, they don't want to go because they're offended, so be it. I think the world is going to be able to survive a few disappointed people. I mean, The Last Jedi certainly made enough money with all the people complaining about it.
Well,
and at the end of the day, Paul
didn't make as much as they wanted.
Okay, but at the end of the day, Paul, are you going to go see Captain Marvel?
I'm not going opening weekend, but I'm going to see it.
Of course you're going to see it, and you're going to pay a ticket to see it, right?
No, I'm going to buy a ticket to Alita and sneak in.
Really? Sure. I don't know if it'll still necessarily be open, but you're going to see Captain Marvel, and you know what? I think you'll probably like it.
Maybe. I'm completely underwhelmed by the trailers, and I'm open to it, but the fact is, does Brie Larson, she's made it clear. She's like, do you think Brie Larson cares what a white man thinks of Captain Marvel?
I'm sure she does.
Were there white people offended by the fact that Jason Momoa was...
She cares. She cares because, and as she said, is that reviews can make or break you.
Sure.
What Brie Larson is trying to do is control the narrative. That's what she's trying to do. And don't think for a second that's not accurate. And she's basically said it. That's why she's handpicking people to interview her. That's why she doesn't want white males to basically review her shit.
I don't know.
But do you think
I think if you look at that junket, I'd be curious to hear from people that are actually on the junket and to see what the actual demographic of it looks like. I'll be really surprised if I don't see I'll be really surprised if I don't see a sit down of Brie Larson and Frosty or something like that. I'd be very surprised. I think that
I'm sure you will.
Are all going to be there.
The one thing she can't control is the fact that, you can't fight the numbers. So something like Collider, they're going to get an invite.
I don't think any white
we don't have an invite to
lose work because of what she said, though. I don't think any white critic is going to lose work because of what she said. I just don't.
I don't think so either. And that you got to understand, I am fully for bringing in as many diverse people as you want. My issue is just with the way that she's going about her press tour and the comments that she's putting out there and the way that she's posturing and trying to control the narrative. It's putting people off.
I'm sure, but I think
my entire point to all of this is.
But who is it putting off? Is it putting off the 12-year-old, 14-year-old that's going to go see the movie? Are they really going to care? They want to see Captain Marvel, and
that's great. That's great, but there is a huge fan base of people that are not kids that are going to go see these movies. You think 12-year-olds are just buying tickets? That's not true.
No, but I think most of the people, not most, that's probably an overstatement, but I think a lot of the people that are bitching and moaning about this are saying so, and they're posturing just as much, and then they're still going to end up chalking up the money to go see it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I also don't think, you're going to have many dads who, their kids are going to come to them and say, "Hey, Dad, can you buy us tickets to see Captain Marvel?" No, because she doesn't like white men. So fuck you, kids. We're not going to see Captain Marvel. Just don't think that's going to happen. I can't really see it happening.
I don't see it going that way either. But I think.
And isn't Jimmy covering like the junket or something like that for Captain Marvel?
He's going to the press conference. That's it.
Were we invited by Disney?
Yeah.
Isn't that the first thing that Disney's invited us to for a while?
Well,
and isn't Jimmy a white male?
I've got some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are white males.
Yeah. And
should I fire one of you guys and hire somebody that's the person of color?
So are you. Well, you know what?
If they can write better than me, then go for it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I got
low bar.
I'm telling you right now, I get inquiries every week. So Alex just signed his death warrant.
Damn it. Happy death day to me.
Look, it's interesting though when you go to a film festival, though, when you go to a, I'd actually be very curious to go on that junket, just to see.
I go to junkets all the time, and
it's always the same.
I would say, yeah, there's probably a predominance of white males, but not by a large percent. There's a lot of females, a lot of blacks, a lot of black people, a lot of LGBTQ, whatever the fuck. Like, there are a ton of different people at junkets now. It is hardly a whitewash. So the demographic has changed, and it's changing in a good way. I see all of that as a great thing. Like, it really is good. And I think you need those voices. I think you need everybody's voice.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think that somebody like Brie Larson, what she's doing and the way she's going about it, it is making people not like her. That's what it comes down to. And it's not helping that the trailers for Captain Marvel are underwhelming. Most people are going to go see it because it's a Marvel movie. But word of mouth is what's going to carry it. So we'll see what happens, man. I mean, honestly, I think that she's you talked about how, you don't like talking about politics. I don't like going into politics either, but this is somebody, why are we talking about it? Because she's bringing it into it. But she shouldn't be. Like, she should just be celebrating, like, hey, I've got this great role. She's made $5 million for this role, which is more than any other person has gotten for a first solo effort film with the MCU, including Chadwick Boseman and RDJ, who got
She's also much better established than any of those people are, though. She must have won an Oscar. RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., when he got Iron Man, the guy was coming off of, serious jail time and hardcore drug addiction, having been fired from several movies because he was on drugs, uninsurable. They couldn't insure him for the movie, so that was a huge risk that they were taking. And it was just so I can kind of see that. And Chadwick Boseman, I mean, who was he really before Black Panther? He wasn't really a star.
Every famous black person ever is who he was before. Every movie he made was a famous historical figure.
Yeah, exactly. It was Jack Robinson. Yeah, he was totally a no-name before that. And it's Brie Larson, though, before she made Captain Marvel, had won an Oscar and had some kind of track record. So, I think that her pay scale wasn't necessarily, out of the question. I mean, it's $5 million. It's not like she was making $25 million.
I'm saying it's a good payday. This is a huge opportunity for her.
Yeah. And if they had cast like Emily Blunt or Scarlett Johansson, if she wasn't Black Widow, they would have made more than $5 million.
Oh God,
probably, yeah. But for a solo effort, I think they also have to they've got to mitigate those costs too. It is a solo film. It is still a risk.
I'll say this to your point, Paul, though, and I get what you're trying to say, and I know that you're not trying to come off, any. I don't think you're,
Are you trying to say I'm not racist?
Yes, I know you're not racist, but it's just.
I'm not racist.
And I know you're not racist, but the thing is, it's just. Anyway, look, she has set the bar high for herself for sure, and I think that the performance is going to be judged harshly either way. She really needs to pull it off. I will say that the movie has a lot to prove, I think, to a lot of people, but it'll be curious to see. I hope she nails it. I really do.
Oh yeah, if she's bad, this is going to be bad.
Oh, yeah, I think she's a great actor. I think that's kind of what happened to Wrinkle in Time. It was just it had to be good, and unfortunately, it wasn't good. Undeniable that it wasn't good. And God forbid Captain Marvel ends up being the one Marvel movie that's not very good because oh boy, it won't be pretty. But I think that Marvel movies are always pretty. At the worst, I think it'll just be okay.
I mean, it looks mediocre, and that's from the beginning trailers. The first two trailers has been kind of like, we'll see. So, anyways, that's our Brie Larson discussion. Captain Marvel, will it make 100 million opening weekend? Yes? No?
Yes, I think it will.
Chris?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it'll make the high close to that or, hovering around that mark probably.
Ant-Man and the Wasp made 75.
I think it'll make more than that.
So...
Because there's not as much competition.
That's true.
I think this is creating buzz for it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're all talking about it.
In the end, she's I don't know if she's sabotaging herself or if she's brilliant because either way the press is getting out there. So I guess you just have to look at it however you want to take it. Is it good press, bad press, or is just all press good press? Who knows? I don't know. But either way, she has created
I'll tell you,
divisive environment for certain people, and some people don't care, and that's just the way it is. And we'll see what happens.
One person who would probably argue that all press isn't necessarily good press. Liam
Who?
Neeson.
Jeez. Neeson season is over.
Oh yeah, Neeson season has ended. It's funny though. So moving on, there's a little movie called Dune coming out, and they just set a release date for it in 2020, which sounds insane, by the way, because they've got Fast 9 is coming out that year.
James Bond, Christopher Nolan.
Not only that, but fuck 2020. This movie feels like a movie that's going to take at least a year to shoot.
And they've got a bunch of unknowns in it.
Yeah, it sounds really quick, actually. It's funny. I was thinking,
small indie.
Bunch of unknowns. Yeah, so Jason Momoa joined this week as what's his name?
Duncan Idaho.
Alex, Duncan Idaho.
Which is a really cool character though that could potentially pop up in all the movies.
And he's like a sword. He's like a sword master type character. So I don't know.
Well, he's the badass one,
dude.
Him and John. Well, yeah, but but then the thing is, there's ways though that he comes back though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does. He dies. He dies, but he's in all the books, so they.
Oh, really?
They do all kinds of. I was reading.
And all I can base off of is the '84 movie because I'm actually going to read the book. I was talking to Alex on Twitter this week, trying to get a feel for where I should start or if I should even start. My other friend Zachy, he's read him, so I was really just trying to get a feel if I should make this investment.
I've never read the books. I mean, good luck. I tried starting the first one and it was.
Oh, really?
But
see, that's my concern. Like I tried reading Fellowship. And I couldn't, like a lot of people read it when they were kids, and I started reading. I was like, oh my god, I can't do this.
So I pulled out my copy of the first book, and I was just thumbing through it. And the book itself, the first one, is 489 pages, and then you've got 55 pages of appendix, including there's about 12 pages here that are terminology, so just words that translate that you would have no idea. But like I was telling you online, Paul. It is a lot like Lord of the Rings, a sci-fi version of that, in that you have to learn the whole geography and all of these terms and things.
Sure.
And if you watch the movie, even if you watch the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune about the failed attempt, it's great. Really it is. Neither one of them is like the book. And they are so different. They're almost like a Cliff's Notes version, but if you go into it, you're going to be saying, oh yeah, I remember when this happened, and then the movie's going to go in a totally different direction, depending on how they're planning this, because there's a ton of source material.
See, I'm just compelled. I guess that's what it comes down to. Like, I love the Dune movie for what it is, but
yeah, me too.
I also feel like while I'm watching it, I'm like, what is going on? Like, I want to know more about that stuff that's happening, but am I wanting to know more about David Lynch's crazy shit, or am I wanting to, or is the information I'm looking for actually in the book? I guess that's what it comes down to.
I mean, I think that's the interesting thing though about this new Dune, and you have a question in the outline. I think that's pretty accurate. Is it going to be another Blade Runner 2049? And I mean, a lot of people are listening to that and they're probably like, I hope so, because Blade Runner 2049 was great for what it was.
Yeah,
but it's also a movie that didn't do very well because it was
box office disaster.
Yeah, it was a very arty film, and for a very particular audience. I don't see how Dune can be anything but that. I'm glad he's getting the opportunity to make it. I really am. I don't necessarily know that it's become a franchise, though. I mean, they tried that once before, in '84, and it certainly didn't work back then, and I mean, it's weird. It's weird shit, and
I think that's the thing is like it's so odd, and I'm fascinated by the oddity of it all. And but in general, audiences get into that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
gonna lean into it big time, like he did with Blade Runner. That's just his sensibility. He's never made a movie that was necessarily super accessible. They do fairly well. I mean, I think Arrival's still his biggest hit. But it's just it.
But even Arrival was like, you got to pay. You can't be fucking around on your phone watching Arrival.
No. And
you gotta watch that fucking
Dune
thing.
Is going to be the same way. I mean, it's not going to be Aquaman. But I would say this though, Dune probably has a good chance of being absolutely great. Whether or not that means that it's going to be a movie that the mainstream is going to embrace, we'll have to really wait and see for that. I have a feeling they probably won't, because I think it's going to be fucking strange, but I think it'll be great. I think I'll probably love it. I think you'll probably love it too, Paul.
I'm excited for it. Like, I think
I'll like it.
It's very possible that it's going to end up. It could be quality wise. It's going to end up a lot like John Carter, where it's going to have a lot of these different cultures and things that are all clashing together that you're going to have to understand. But it's something that it is virtually impossible to make this a single standalone film. It has to kick off a franchise. And that's why the sci-fi miniseries version that they did, which was spread over multiple episodes, you get all of that background and you get a lot more of the understanding. If this ends up being,
it's also quite boring though.
It is, but that's the thing, is that this is going to have to be at least a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. If they end up doing less than that, this is going to be the next Dark Tower. A big project with potential that ends up turning.
Denis Villeneuve directing it, though, it's going to be probably.
Oh, his Dark Tower would have been awesome. I would have loved to see that movie. But
he's a really good director, and the cast is fantastic, and the cast are all signing on probably because there's an amazing script there, and they trust his vision. I mean, it's not a cast of no names. I mean, he's casting. They still haven't cast the role that Sting played too in the original.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to who it is, though, because if they have to fight Timothée Chalamet at the end of the movie, I hope it's not
wearing nothing but metal underwear.
Yeah, I hope it's not somebody who's too physically imposing, because Timothée is delicate.
He is delicate.
Those extra E's in his name, yeah.
I wonder if he's going to hit the gym for this role. I think, it's interesting you brought up John Carter, Alex, because I love John Carter, but I think one of the biggest problems with John Carter is that it doesn't have and somebody else wrote about this too. So I'm not the first person to note this, but it doesn't have an action sequence in it that is long enough and drawn out enough that you're like, oh, I love that part. There's the part where he fights all those creatures and it's like that flashback with like the somber music playing over it. That should have been an action sequence with full sound effects and seeing everything happen. But instead they tied it into this flashback of him with his family getting killed and him burying them. And it diminishes that scene. And I think that if Dune doesn't, it's going to have to pull in at least a couple of like sequences, action or big, sequences that are memorable. Things that you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go see it again because I want to see that part. Like Alita, it's like, I want to go see the rollerball sequence again. Like I'll go see it again. And Dune is going to need that.
And Blade Runner 2049 didn't really have that. It didn't really have a big standout signature action scene.
It had a bunch of small sequences that were interesting, but I can't think of a single sequence in Blade Runner 2049 outside of the ending with the waves and everything. But even that was a fairly just small, intimate sequence of, trying to drown somebody.
Which was very much in line with the original, though.
Right. Yeah. The big benefit that Dune has for it is that pretty much even compared to the Lynch movie, we're not going to have seen any of this before. With John Carter, the big fight was the one he had with that beast in the arena, which was basically done in Attack of the Clones because everybody has been copying John Carter for decades. But with Dune, they can literally do anything, and there are more than enough sequences in the book that they could turn them into massive spectacle sequences that'll make this worthwhile. So I think that's
I bet it's going to be really, really weird, but
I hope so. I hope so. That's what I love about the Lynch film. So I'm hoping that there's still some of that like grotesque, weird shit in there because it's cool. Like you don't see that all the time. You don't really see that in Star Wars. Like something like Star Wars is pretty
like the
light
heart,
and fluffy in that sense,
and stuff. Yeah.
And speaking of Star Wars, there's a gentleman named Rian Johnson who had an interesting back and forth this week on Twitter when the Super Bros guys reported that he was not going to be doing his original trilogy anymore. And Johnson just went on Twitter casually and very coolly and said, no, I'm, despite what the Super Bros guys are saying, who I'm sure are super and really cool bros, I am still doing my own Star Wars trilogy. So anybody that disliked Last Jedi, which I did not like The Last Jedi, but I am not against Rian Johnson doing his own trilogy. I think that's fine. Sure. Maybe. I think Johnson is actually a very talented filmmaker. I love Brick. I think is.
I was actually thinking about maybe doing Brothers Bloom for best movie you never saw, unless somebody else did it.
I don't think so, but that's a good one.
No, I think somebody did do Brothers Bloom, but just double check.
Maybe.
Just have to double check. But anyway,
I would do Brick, but I feel like everybody's seen Brick at this point.
No way.
Yeah,
you could do Brick. Nobody's seen Brick. It's kind of a tough watch in a way, but man, it's fascinating. I think
Looper is a great movie too. Looper has that scene that I'll never forget, that scene where Paul Dano's character is being dismembered on the operating table and the guy's driving. That's a chilling scene. With, not much gore, but it's just the idea of what's happening.
And see, that's what I like about Johnson.
And him waking up, to see like all of his parts are gone. Imagine what that would be like, the horror of that.
And that's why I'm more, I don't know if excited is the word. I'm just more open to seeing Johnson do his own thing. I think like him having to carry any filmmaker having to carry the burden of the original trilogy, that's a lot. And, he took a lot of heat for Last Jedi, some of it warranted, I guess. But at the same time, I'd like to see what he does with his own thing. Because I think he could really do something special if he's allowed to just go do his own thing, which he tried to do with Last Jedi, and it just, in my opinion, didn't work. But I think on his own characters and his own world, give it to him, man.
Well, I can't wait to see his new movie, Knives Out, starring Daniel Craig, Michael Shannon, Jamie Lee Curtis, and
Don Johnson.
That's right.
And Chris Evans.
And Rian Johnson did direct 3 of the most memorable episodes of Breaking Bad as well.
Oh yeah.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
And, it's the same with him and with the Game of Thrones guys doing their trilogy. I mean, people complain that it's going to be overkill. I love having more Star Wars, and I think that with J.J. Abrams just wrapping Episode 9, and it sounds, unless something to the contrary happens, it sounds like this is the end of this story for all intents and purposes, which is a good thing. I think they do need to do that closure. But I want to see them branch out. I don't want it to always be centered on the same characters. And going in a new direction with no preconceived notions is a great thing. And that
I want something with the Force and with Jedis.
Yeah. I'd like some goddamn lightsabers, if it's not too much to ask, some fucking Jedi lore. Because let's be honest, that is the most interesting and compelling thing about Star Wars.
It's the thing that makes Star Wars Star Wars.
Yeah, if you're gonna sit there and tell me no, like Han Solo's cool, like, oh really? Let's look at the Solo box office, because that's not fucking accurate. Nobody wants to see a dude that's just fucking stealing ships and flying around shooting fucking blasters. They want to see goddamn lightsabers and force powers. That's fucking Star Wars, and that's what we want to see. So whether their last name ends in fucking Skywalker or not, that is what I want to see from Star Wars.
Yeah, they could easily go back thousands of years to the Old Republic kind of stuff and tell an awesome story there, and it still has all of those things, but different tech, different costumes. That would be very cool to see.
Yeah, like, oh my God. You're talking about, for Star Wars, they've had lightsabers for what, 1,000 years, thousands of years? I don't fucking know, like a long time. There's a lot of stories there with Force. And in truth, prior to the Skywalker saga, if we're going by the Legends timeline, the Jedi were way more refined and fucking, at their peak before that time. Well before the fucking before the prequels, and the prequels kind of touch on that, of them being at their height. But even prior to that, they were, fucking at their height of power. So there's tons of stories to mine there. And I know a lot of people argue for that too. They really want people to go back and do the old school shit.
Speaking of stories, so James Cameron told a story about how he enjoyed Aquaman, and people got really upset because he made a joke.
Yeah. I think a lot of people took it the wrong way. I guess, maybe that's how some of you guys think I took the Brie Larson stuff the wrong way. But I think it's the same thing with Cameron, where the guy he made like kind of an offhand joke, and he was like, hey, it's cool. It's like, some of it didn't look quite as realistic, and it defied physics or reality, but he didn't say, he said it had like a dreamlike disconnection from any sense of physics or reality. And people just kind of zoom around underwater because they propel themselves mentally, I guess. I don't know. He's like, but it's cool. You buy it on its own terms. I think that's a perfectly legitimate comment.
Yeah, me too.
And people are like, oh, this is coming from the guy that makes a movie about blue aliens. I'm like, yeah, but it's the same thing. He made Avatar, which I don't even really like. But, I appreciate that it was just a creative, inventive thing. And he wasn't trying to sell it on a realistic level. He was just trying to keep it real within that world. And that's exactly what he says here is like, you buy the Aquaman stuff on its own terms, which is exactly what he does. And then he just made a jokingly offhand comment of like, since the movie made $1 billion, he's like, where was it? Come back when you hit your second billion and you're on your way to your third. Then we'll talk. That's just like an offhand joke. But again, this is what it comes down to. Anytime you make a joke and it's in print or anything like that, it's very easy to take it out of context. I made a joke on Twitter over the Brie Larson stuff, and everybody took it way out of context. I was like, this is a joke. And then people were like, no, you're angry. I'm like, no, it's a joke. So I just deleted it. I was like, I'm not going to deal with that. But it's the same thing. Like when you see it written versus hearing it, it's a totally different story. And I think that's what people did is they walked away from this as like Cameron kind of dissing Juan when he's like really like, you know, hey, great job, man. Hey, come back when you get your third million, you know.
Yeah,
it's like
joking.
He's just joking around. But God, everybody like went off on the fucking deep end on camera. They're like, oh, he's such a jerk. He's such a prick. I'm like, listen.
And of course he's joking about it. It was a joke in Entourage, and that was the whole reason why he's even associated with it. And if you're not going to make it light of it, then I mean, people need to get a goddamn sense of humor.
Oh yeah, God.
Well, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it has to do with the way people react on social media these days, and it's kind of like trickling down where it's like there's you make a joke and people
there's no room for nuance. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people are just like knee jerk, like they want to latch on to something.
You have 240 characters though. There's no room to evoke a nuanced message of 240 characters. So that's why I really don't like Twitter that much.
I like Twitter a lot. It's probably the platform I use the most, but the truth is I use it specifically just to kind of like engage with fans and have fun and stuff, and you know, to share news. That's really the only reason I'm there. But you know, there's plenty of times where it's like if you make a joke or a comment, it's like, oh my God, now I gotta fucking go down this fucking deep dive road, and it's not even worth it. And the thing with Twitter too is like, it is the equivalent of making a statement and then having thousands of strangers just turn around and all talk at once. There's no conversation going on. That's why it's the worst place for debate. Twitter is not the place for debate, conversation, or anything like that. It's like just a kind of back and forth Connect Four game. It's not in any way is it a place for discourse. It's a fucking disaster. It's a minefield. Not worth it. So
I think that we need more people of color on Twitter than less privileged white males.
Yeah, I should be kicked off.
I'm going to pick one disabled person to now tweet with me, and everything will be right in the world, and I'll make $100 million.
Okay. Just remember, Alex, your job's on the line.
Body snatchers.
Got to even the numbers. Actually, I just hired Kaylin Corrigan because the truth is I wanted a female voice on the site.
Sure.
But at the same time, you know what else I want? I just want talented writers, and I've let Kaylin know because personally, I think it's sexist to say, oh, I just want a female. So just send me a female. I think that's sexist personally. So I want her to know, like, no, I want you because you have a great voice. She's actually has a great genre knowledge. So she's the main reviewer on Arrow in the Head now. But I said, I was like, I appreciate that you are a female and that you have that perspective. You're a reviewer first. Like I want your skills, your talent first. Mm-hmm. And I don't ever want that to be mitigated. Like, oh, hey, you're just here because you're a female. That's bullshit. That's sexist. Like, no, you are a female, but you're here because you can write. And that's the main thing.
And she gets ripped apart just as much as all of us do in the comments. So she fits right in.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Oh my God. I get skewered. Everybody gets skewered.
Absolutely. And
I have somebody that every time I give a 7 on 10 to something, somebody freaks out because they think I only give 7 on 10s. God, how the hell did that start?
God, I fucking hate movie scores so fucking much. If it was up to me, dude, we would have no scores. I would take scores away.
Wish we didn't, to be honest.
The best comment that we've ever gotten, and I've seen it at least 6 or 7 times, is your review sounds like an 8, but you gave it a 6. That doesn't really seem to fit.
God.
Eat my butt, you dick.
I mean, giving a score, we just don't have we don't have conversations over scores. If that was the case, this podcast would have been over because we would have just had like, oh, that's an 8, that's a 4, that's a 6, that's a. Yeah. That's not how you define things. Movies are not made by a score. Like that's not how you define. Like there's movies that I guess I would say I would give a 7 on 10, but I have much more to say about it than a 7 on 10 because it's a 7 on 10 for a reason because there's like I guess 70% of the movie I love. That's a pretty good percentage. And then there's 30% that I have a problem with, but there's more to it than that, than just numbers. There's a reason behind those numbers. At least there should.
Well, I see the same kind of response when I do a TV review, because if I get screeners and I review something, it may be 5 out of 8 episodes or 7 out of 13, and I give it a review, and then they say, how can you review it without having seen the full season? I'm pretty sure I can tell a good idea about how a show is going to be. If it has shitty editing and bad acting,
God, and
7 episodes, it sucks.
You can't make it through. If in 5 episodes you're not enjoying it, guess what? You're not going to finish the show.
Right, exactly. And I still hate watch anyway, just because I'm a completist. But I mean, you're right. Scores. I stopped, even when I do top 10s on the site, I stopped putting numbers next to them, and I just put them out there, because if God forbid I put Sean Connery at 7 and Roger Moore at 6, somebody's going to flip their shit.
Yeah, I find for like anytime we do like most anticipated, things like that, at this point I always just say in no particular order. Because as soon as you do that, it locks people out of actually enjoying it, because instead of reading it and looking at what's the content, they're looking at the order and the number. And that's the least important thing about the whole fucking thing. But people have this thing about hierarchy, man. It's fucking insane. Yeah. Like, I don't get it. I don't see why that matters. It's just fucking silly. Silly.
Speaking of silly, have we got any silly questions?
I'm gonna say we probably do. So let me get in here. Oh, Ulysses has a question.
All right.
Let's get 2. You can always count on Ulysses. Since Superman is getting shelved by Supergirl, which actress would you pick?
For Supergirl? Actually, funny enough,
mine is Emma Watson. Oh, wait, sorry, I gotta finish this. Mine is Emma Watson. Would love her as Supergirl.
Oh, that's what Ulysses says.
Yeah. Superman is getting shelved by Supergirl. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Didn't they say that they were pausing production?
Instead of Superman, yeah. I think it's complicated, though, to have that going at the same time as like a successful TV version, because it seems like everybody likes the TV version. So
aren't they doing that with the Flash, though? Potentially.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know. It seems like they're not really. I mean,
I'll be honest. I don't see a Supergirl film as. I think it's fruitless, personally.
I'll only see it if they get Brie Larson.
I think if I was to cast that,
Alex, you're not allowed to watch
it. Funny enough, though, I think I'd probably cast the girl from Happy Death Day to You, Jessica Ralph. I think she'd be good.
Yeah,
I did see somebody say that.
Said that. I thought that was a decent idea.
Although she's little, though. She's like 5'2", though. I mean, I don't know.
Well, Tom Cruise is tiny and he's a badass, so
yeah.
Cast what's her face, Natalie Emanuel from Game of Thrones. Make her Supergirl.
Whatever.
Yeah, sure. I could see Natalie Emanuel. It'd be something different.
That'll piss people off.
Michael B. Jordan actually said he'd love to play the black version of Superman, which I think would be pretty cool. Like the alternate version, I think that would be perfect.
As long as it's not Steel, we're good.
Oh god!
Yeah, as long as it's not Steel, exactly.
No, I would kind of. There's another one. There's an alternate reality version. I can't remember what his name is. That is black, and I think that would would be interesting.
Steel was. I mean, if you read that comic, I mean.
Yeah, but this one is like this like character
Superman,
actually. Yeah, but he has different color costume and stuff, but he is the Superman of this, I think, dimension or reality or whatever. I'm not as familiar, so.
Calvin Ellis.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, he's got the look, that's for sure.
Well, I feel like, I don't know, Michael B. Jordan's just got the build and the presence and everything for a proper superhero role. I don't quite know what it would be yet, but I feel like he's, maybe. He kind of got screwed out of, Green Lantern. Oh man, I think that would be a good one. Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Okay, so let's finish the questions here. The Hulu Netflix thing, well, we already talked about that. And we talked about Doom Patrol. So he already asked all the questions. Ulysses, we got you covered, bro. You don't even have to ask questions. We talked about all the stuff
you had questions. Anticipate it.
Oh, let's see here. Fuck. Shit, all these questions. So Coach Finstock is asking about this is his question. What does Denis Villeneuve need to do to ensure the film is well received by the general audience? I swear to God, we are like reading your minds this week. We've answered your question. damn it.
Too good.
Yeah, I mean, literally. And there's follow-up questions about how does it do well financially. Bros, just check it out. The Beard and the Bald, and this week, Special A, we got you covered. Like, we know what's up. We have covered all the topics that everybody else is talking about this week, even them controversial ones. And we're not going to kill each other.
No.
We're all best buds.
I might be getting fired, but besides that, we're good.
You're not getting fired. Well, I mean, you could. You'd have to. Truth is, you'd have to work pretty hard to get fired. And here's the other thing. I just put out a notice this week, and this is, I guess, is another good time to plug it. We are looking for a YouTube admin for our video games channel. I don't give a fuck what color your skin is. I don't care if you're disabled, black, white, green, yellow. I don't give a fuck. I need somebody that can run admin and knows video games. So if you're good at that stuff, then email us at I don't remember the email address I put on there. I think it's joblovideos@gmail. But look for the tweet on JoBlo and come in. I don't give a fuck. Don't care. I just need somebody that can do it. So there. Alex, you know anybody?
No, I don't know anybody.
I don't know anything about video games. And I don't associate with anybody who knows anything about video games. No.
How dare you? I know a little bit.
Yeah.
I play Tetris.
I've been playing Fallout 76. And I'm kind of disappointed because it's online. Like, I don't like playing online shit. I fucking hate it. I just want to play. I'm the guy that plays the campaign or for these RPG games. I just want to play myself. I don't want to be friends with anybody else on the game. Like, it's my escape from everybody else. Why the fuck do I want to play a video game and have to deal with other people? Like, I just want to sit down and like play the game for a little bit and just be away from everything. So I guess the people that use it as a social thing, like my son does. My son plays Fortnite and Overwatch and all these other fucking games, and he plays them online with other friends and shit. And I'm just like, that's like the reverse of the experience I want playing video games. So
I agree with you.
These kids today.
Goddamn, these kids today.
Rapscallions,
sons of bitches. So I guess that's about it, guys. We didn't have any other questions. Anything else you guys want to discuss before we close out?
I'm trying to think. What's coming out this week? I mean, Fighting with My Family is coming out this week. We both really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take my kid to see it. By the way, I took my kid to see Alita on Tuesday. And
did he like it?
He didn't just like it. He loved it.
Yeah.
Like, he loved it. And I was happy.
I told you, my girlfriend really liked Alita as well.
Yeah, like he was like really, really into it, more so than I thought he would be.
It's funny. Nick Bosworth hit me up on Twitter, and he was all like, "Well, I don't want to see Alita now because it's only in 3D, and I only want to see movies in 2D." And I was like, "Dude, this is the one movie that the 3D really takes off." Yeah, but 3D. IMAX 3D.
Yeah. It's like the Aquaman thing. Like, you get way more picture, and it's noticeable. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not going to be like, "Oh, I just didn't even notice it." Like Aquaman, I remember I was like, "Wow." Like, that end battle in 3D and IMAX was fucking epic.
It's funny. We took a friend of ours. We took a friend of ours to see Alita in 3D, and they were kind of whining about the 3D. And then when it started, and the first thing comes out of the screen, they went, "Wow!" It's funny to hear that. Always think of that person in the theater. Wow! Like dodging their head.
I remember seeing.
Wow.
I saw the Michael Jackson. What was the Michael Jackson movie that he had at Epcot Center? Because I was at Epcot.
Francis Ford Coppola.
When I was a kid, and they had the old school 3D glasses, and I remember the little creature is like right in front of you, and I remember everybody in the audience is like, because we were not accustomed to 3D like we are now. Everybody was putting their hands in front of their faces trying to touch it. They were like, "Oh,
well, it's like the first, the great train robbery where the train comes towards the screen in that movie from 1899. And people were jumping out of the screen.
Jesus fucking Christ!
It's witchcraft.
I love it. If you guys are going to go see something this week, I highly recommend Alita. And Fighting with My Family is, I guess, limited this week and wide next week. So,
and you know what? If you want a fun movie, I mean, Happy Death Day to you, man. I'm telling you, really.
I haven't seen it, but everybody
really entertaining.
There it is. Alex, do you have any TV recommendations for this week? I know you got the column going up tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, I would say my top recommendation for this week is the new season of Documentary Now is premiering, and the first episode. It's Owen Wilson and Michael Keaton in a documentary called Batshit Valley about a utopian society that collapses. It looks
what channel or network is that on?
IFC on the 20th.
Damn it, I don't have IFC.
Man, I have to say, respect for all the TV reviews you do, dude. I have no idea how you find enough hours.
Hey, Alex, give us those numbers again that you put out.
Oh, jeez. I think that it was in the entire time I've been reviewing TV, it's 9,000 hours of TV that I've watched. God. And that's more than there are hours in a full calendar year. And I just looked at it. I've done 14 TV reviews in 2019.
God,
it's I'm dead.
Wow.
I don't understand. I'm constantly baffled by how many reviews that Alex does and how much TV he watches. I don't know how you do it.
I feel like I think he's got like a line. He's got some spice from Dune, and he bends.
Spice is life.
He's got the spice.
I'll tell you what the secret. 100%. Honestly, the secret is that I just have Brie Larson watch it all, and she tells me what to think.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
I love it.
Sounds about right. That sounds about right.
She's the smartest of us all.
She really is. She knows.
I do like her.
I think she's a talented actress.
Short Term 12 is a great movie.
I love Short Term 12. I love Room. I hate when she's doing press.
She was good in Free Fire too.
Yeah. Maybe you'll get to interview her one day.
Not if she listens to this.
Probably not. I actually have on my Twitter profile now that Brie Larson doesn't care what I think. So.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's fine. But I change that part every now and again. As soon as like the new controversy starts, that's when I put something new in there, just for fun.
Yeah, mine currently says that Bill Cosby gave me something, and I can't remember what happened last night.
It's fun to change it up, you know.
Mine just says I like reviewing movies.
Listen up, you vanilla Canadian.
I like critic columnist for JoBlo.com. That's what mine says.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Just kidding. I love you, Chris. I would if anybody got rid of you at JoBlo, it wouldn't be me.
I love you too, man. Wait, somebody trying to get rid of me at JoBlo.com?
No.
It's not me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that if it ever came down to it, I'd be like, it wouldn't be me getting rid of you.
Oh, one thing we could mention. You know who passed away? Bruno Ganz.
What?
Meme Hitler.
Yeah, he died today. Bruno Ganz.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 77 years old, colon cancer. You know, Downfall is a great movie. You know, he's very good as Hitler in that film. It's kind of been diminished over time by all the videos. Hitler's very angry about so and so. You know, that's
and
I found that was a funny idea that that got taken a little too far. But he's in this great movie. One of my favorite movies, actually, The American Friend by Wim Wenders, with him and Dennis Hopper, which is actually a Ripley book, a Tom Ripley book. And they remade it actually as a really good movie too, called Ripley's Game, with John Malkovich as Ripley. But The American
Wings
Friend,
of Desire too, right?
Yeah, but he's in Wings of Desire, of course. But The American Friend with Bruno Ganz and Dennis Hopper, like it's just the cool thriller from like the late 70s Germany, and it's nuts, man. It's a really good movie. I highly recommend that to anybody who wants to see a good foreign movie that is not pretentious and just very easy to watch and very enjoyable. I would say the American Friend, half in English too, because Dennis Hopper speaks English in it, and Bruno Ganz speaks English to Dennis Hopper in the movie. So partially.
And if you do want to see him in a very pretentious foreign film, he was also in The House That Jack Built.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh boy, I reviewed that for JoBlo.
Did you see the full version of that, Chris?
Yes, I did. I saw it at a film festival in Montreal. Yeah, they would not have shown the R-rated version. Yeah, we saw the whole version.
What's the other? I feel like there's another movie that's out or coming out that will never. The Nightingale.
Yeah, I wonder because it hasn't been rated yet, but I feel like they're not going to put it out as a.
I'm so frustrated that I missed that at Sundance.
It will not be an R-rated movie. There's no way. I'd be shocked if it got an R rating.
See, that frustrates me, man, because I want to see what you saw.
Well, on Netflix and stuff, that'll be the version that's out there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, boys, for the conversation. And for Alex for joining us this week. Special A. Always nice to have another voice and our resident TV expert.
I will be going back and watching at least 9,000 more hours before we meet again.
You can obviously
come back on the next time you've accrued another 2,000.
Yeah, we'll have
next week.
It'll be a Tuesday. Yeah.
Have you back for the next milestone. You could catch Chris's reviews and his work on JoBlo.com. You could catch Alex on JoBlo.com. For now. Until I start hand picking and making a big show of who I'm going to hand pick to replace them. I'm not going to replace you guys. I love you guys. Fuck. Alex, what's your next review coming up?
Probably American Gods and Whiskey Cavalier coming up this week.
Okay. Did I approve Whiskey Cavalier? Which one is that?
That's the one with Lauren Cohen, why she left The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah. I did approve that. Okay. And Chris, what's your next review? What do you got?
I think it's How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Oh, yeah. Do you have what's the press screening date for that?
Not until Wednesday night.
Oh.
Yeah, too bad.
I'm trying to get Jay Baruchel to come back.
I hope so.
So it would be really cool if we could get him. I really want to talk to Jay Baruchel because he went on Collider and talked about, they tried to talk to him about the Punisher TV show. He's like, oh, isn't it so great? And like John Bernthal's great. And Jay was kind of like, well, I got to be careful here. And he's like, I don't really like it. And I was like, I need to talk to Jay Baruchel. I need to talk about this because I agree. Like, I think he would be a fun person to talk to about the Punisher. So
I'd like to talk to him again.
He's a cool guy. He's a nerd like us.
A Montrealer.
And he's very Canadian and a proud Canadian, which I think is cool too. I'd like to talk to him about his Captain Canuck book because he's writing it now, the comic. I don't know if you read those or not, but there you have it. You can watch me if you want to see me fit into a mocap suit. I put my fucking Alita shit up this week, which is a cool experience with Robert Rodriguez. I did not go to the WWE thing that I was supposed to go to because I lost my voice last week completely. So I had to cancel that, which really sucks.
And another best movie you never saw this week.
Which we don't know what it's going to be yet, but Chris will pick out something cool, and I'm sure it will get like 5,000 shares.
Another unpopular opinion that will piss people off.
Best of the Best did relatively well. I was surprised.
Yeah, it did really movie. Did really well. Alex, what's the unpopular opinion this week?
Widows.
You didn't like Widows?
Really?
No, I did not like.
Fuck you. All right.
Fuck you.
I'm done.
Alex, nobody cares what you think.
I know, but they'll read it anyway, and then they'll send me hate mail.
You know, I wanted to ask you this. I know we're trying to wrap up here, but I want to ask you this. Do you feel like, because you've been doing unpopular opinion for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like at this point that you've reached a point where the backlash and stuff is not quite as extreme and more of like they know what they're getting into, or is it still the same as it's always been?
I think that it depends on the film. That sometimes if I go to a movie that's not quite as big, that sometimes if it's middling, they're criticizing whether it is truly that divisive of a film or not. I think the more divisive it is, the bigger there's an issue. But honestly, every now and then I start to think I'm running out of movies, and then I get about 12 or 15 more that seem to fit the bill. But things that I think people are going to disagree with me on, they end up agreeing, which is happening more and more, which is kind of surprising.
That's always happened to me with best movie I never saw too. You know, every movie that I think is going to do really well is like, eh. And then the ones that I'm like, oh, nobody's good. I was really worried about best of the best, and then it did pretty well. So there you go.
There was a lot of, and I usually share the best of the best ones too. Or I'm sorry, best movie you never saw. That was a great headline though. The best movie you never saw, the best of the best. I don't think you'll ever have one like that again.
Alrighty, guys, I gotta go because I got a concert to get to.
What? What concert are you going to?
Peter Murphy, Bauhaus.
I don't know what the fuck that is. Nobody knows.
Are you taking a time machine back to 1987?
No, kinda.
All right, boys. Thanks for joining us. For listeners, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Beer in the Bald Podcast. Give us a review on iTunes. Give us stars. Give us money, Lamborghinis, fame, fortune, and other stuff. But thank you for listening more than anything, and we will see you guys next week for more Beer in the Bald.
white dudes. No, I'm not.